First on our agenda, additions regarding designation of alternates and minutes procedures to the board's rules and procedures, including meeting code of conduct. First document you have looks like this: rules and procedures of our existing rules and procedures with some notes from our town attorney. The first note here is regarding this waiver provision. This waiver provision allows us, we had some concern about having a fixed rotation for designating alternates, that may not allow us to allow the board to designate the alternate they feel best suited. If board members want to, they can use this waiver provision to suspend the rotation of alternates and vote to put in a different alternate that they choose. So it just allows the board some flexibility. This is what's been in the procedures before and is still in the procedures.
This waiver provision allows the board flexibility. What does that mean to
If any rule or procedure consists of procedures, it's the highlighted part. Procedures set forth in these rules or procedures shall be followed unless the board determines otherwise by majority vote.
Yeah.
Right.
And is there going to be a procedure by which we know who the last an alternate appointed at the prior meeting, could be 10 meetings ago, so we know who the next person on the alphabetical list is?
Yeah, let's work through this in order that it's here, and when we get to designating alternates, we'll address that.
Okay.
These on page 2, the comment, this would violate RSA 91A2 Roman numeral 2. He's actually removed that. He removed that, so the part he was saying violates has been removed from this. So this is the actual language he's proposed. So that is, the officers of the board shall be elected annually as soon as practical after town meeting by a majority vote of the board. In the absence of any officers, the board may designate interim officers to act in their place. What that RSA 91A2 Roman numeral 2 said was previous to the language had said there would be a ballot, and there cannot be a ballot according to the law. So this is the recommended language.
So we elect officers just by voice vote? Is that what you mean? No ballot?
Yes, because so I was at a municipal association meeting, training session all day today, actually. And they said, one thing they said that was there are no ballots allowed in public meetings.
Greg, that doesn't apply to elections. I'm sorry to interrupt. Elections can be held right now.
So that conflicts what we have there. Can we have by ballot?
He asked us to take this out, take out that and leave this language, is what our town council asked us to do.
We're talking about
B,
capital B at the top of
capital
the
B
page.
at the top of the page, yeah.
Well, it doesn't really specify. It says it shall be elected as soon as practicable. It doesn't say how.
Correct. It was the in absence of any officers part that was that he had an issue with.
Yep.
Any more discussion or questions about that? Okay, here we are on page 3, alternates. Participation of alternates. Alternates are encouraged to attend all public meetings to participate as non-voting members. RSA 673-6, alternates shall sit a portion of the table, sit at a portion of the table identified as alternates area and shall be identified by name placards stating name and alternate. Alternates may not vote, make motions, second motions, or participate in deliberative discussions. Discussions after the motion is seconded. That's what a deliberative discussion is, right? After the motion is seconded, unless designated to serve in a member's place.
So alternates are encouraged to attend all meetings and participate.
Correct. And to sit at a part of the table.
Should Hillary do that?
Well, we haven't passed this yet, so she should,
Gotcha.
and no alternate should be joining us until. How do you feel, Ben? Can you move to that chair so we're strictly in compliance? Thank you. So that's section A. Do we have any discussion about section A? Thoughts on that section A? 5A, right? And 5B, yes.
Discussion about participation. So, I think my concern that I said before was efficiency, being that this is a very large board. That being said, I appreciated a lot of contributions that I've heard from alternates so far, so I'm a bit torn about it. I also have quite a bit of confusion determining what is, what you're considering working session and hearing, and I'd like that clarified on the agenda if possible, if we're gonna move forward with this, so that we all know when it's appropriate for alternates to speak.
Okay, this is a work session, as it says at the top of the page.
Yes, but that's the first I've seen a determination on an agenda.
Okay, we'll try to be more. So in most meetings, there are partially hearing. A part of it is a hearing, and part of it is work session.
Yeah, my request is that that's
Yeah.
designated on the agenda.
Yes, that would be a good thing to have clearly designated. We should try to do that better. So 5B, designation of alternates. Now, this is an interesting thing because the law clearly states that the board chair shall designate the alternate. But in talking to town council, they pretty much say you should do it anyway, other than have the board chair designate the alternate. So we could do it by height, we could do it by hair color, we could do it by age. I think Lois suggested that we do it by first letter of last name and just do a rotation. When a regular member is absent or disqualified from acting or otherwise does not act on a matter pending before the board, an alternate shall be designated to act in the regular member's place in accordance with RSA 673-11. Alternates shall be designated based on a rotation, alphabetical by last name. The alternate designated to serve shall have all the powers and duties of a regular member in regards to the matter for which the alternate is designated to act. The alternate shall continue to act in place of the regular member unless otherwise determined by the board. Only the alternate designated by the Board of Selectmen may serve in the Selectmen's representative member's place. If an alternate is absent or disqualified, the next alternate in rotation will be designated and further rotation will proceed without adjustment. So I think that may address part of your question that, so if somebody isn't at the meeting and they're up to be designated, if they're not there, they miss their turn, we just keep on going to the next one. They don't get to come back and say, oh, I missed my turn last time, I want to do it this time. I think it's mostly for simplicity of management.
My concern was really record keeping convenience more than anything. We've gone months without an alternate from time to time, and determining who is the last one, who's the next one up by alphabetical order seems like it might pose a difficulty for the secretary.
Well, we can always look back in the minutes, of course, to
Yeah.
find out. I don't, Does anyone have a suggestion?
I think that
A better way?
it's all that difficult. If Lois wanted to create a small spreadsheet or even just a Word document. And on such and such date, what member was absent and who was the alternate that was used, and just keep a running.
Yeah, well, I guess listed on every agenda, or every,
It's not that difficult.
All right, if it's not difficult.
All right. Let's see. So those are the things that we have talked about previously. There are other things that we want to talk about. Do we want to move to approve these changes and then go on to talk about the other possible changes that some people have suggested? And I also got some input from the municipal association today on things that should probably be changed. So move.
Second.
I disagree. I think we should just plow through and just keep on going. We're almost done. We're on number 8, and all we have to do is get to number 12.
Okay, there's an issue is that the town council has approved all the language we just talked about.
Okay.
The town council has not approved what we haven't talked about and are going to propose.
regardless, we have a seconded motion, so we vote on it.
I have a question. That motion went quite quickly, and I have a question about the 5 alternate members. I just recall Greg saying that you were interested in having it be 4 because of the efficiency question. If we're gonna have everyone seated for discussion, is that still on the table? If there's something you want, or do you want to keep it at 5?
Where's the numbers?
I didn't want. The first members.
As I recall, my concern is about efficiency. And we have added, we used to have 2 alternates, and now we've added 2 more. And I would like, it seems like a lot of change to be adding yet a 5th. So you're suggesting reduce the number from 5 to 4?
My recommendation, yeah, if we are going to have everyone seated for discussion, that could add time, that reducing the number of alternates. I mean, most towns have 3. Unique for such a small town to have 5. So, looking at Loudon and Dunlevy 3. So,
How does the board feel about this?
We're talking about number 1 here, not more than 5 alternates.
Correct.
yes, the consideration of changing that to 4, given that we are going to now have them seated for all discussions, and that might increase our time.
I think we should capture the interest and the enthusiasm that this board has generated over the last year, and where we had more participation than in a long time as far as people running for the planning board, and they are attending here now, and I think they should be included as long as they want to continue to attend the meetings. So I think that in a working session, I think all the alternates should be present, and to encourage participation, number 1 in the planning board, but to also keep them encouraged that they might be able to contribute in the discussions.
So I think that we were talking about this, but right now we're talking about the total number of alternates allowed, 4 or 5.
The interest in the planning board seems to have waxes and wanes, and right now we're in a period where there's a lot of interest, but there have been times where we really have a difficult time finding anyone to run for the planning board, never mind sit as alternates. And having a bunch of them has been very advantageous at times in the past.
And we don't typically have all of them in any given meeting, like we have 4 right now, and we have 2 present.
1 or 2 show up, right?
Well, that we are allowed to have 5 doesn't mean that we appoint 5.
I think 5 should be a good number.
All right, so
Certainly shouldn't be a number higher, but yeah, it strikes me more than the actual board than it's.
Yeah, so we still have a motion on the table. Are we ready to vote on that?
What's the motion?
The motion is to approve these changes that we just talked about. on the participation of alternates, the designation of alternates, and what was the other one? Rotation, yeah. So that is designation of alternates, yes,
That brings us up to how far?
Page 3.
through page 3.
Through page 3? How about the top of 4? Does it include that?
No,
Because there's a typo in there that I want.
yes, there is a typo in there, and we can correct the typo without consulting the town council, I believe. Want to tell us what the typo is there? I did have a note on that too.
So on page 4, at the very top, if you go down to the very last sentence in that paragraph,
In B,
in letter B,
the vote of, the word of,
it says a vote of on a question of shall, and what that should read is a vote of disqualification shall be advisory. So there's a couple extra ofs and ands, and
What's it supposed to say?
it's supposed to say a vote of a question of disqualification shall be advisory, non-binding.
The word disqualification doesn't appear at all.
That's correct.
it appears up at the top in the first sentence.
Got it.
But that's just comparing the documents, this one to the old one.
So, just so we're all clear, it's going to read, a vote on a question of disqualification shall be advisory and non-binding.
Correct. That's what I'm proposing.
It may not be requested by persons other than board members. Discussion, questions?
I'm fine with this, but we do have a motion on the table.
Right, so we have to, if we're approving the document with that change also, then we have to have a new motion, I guess.
Amend the motion.
Would you like to amend the motion to include the changes we made at the top of page 4?
Yes. Second.
And do we say a second? Are we more discussion or are we going to vote?
So one clarifying question, if we're going on to this item now, board member, does that mean including alternates or only elected members?
Where are we looking?
The new item that we're adding on disqualification, that it can only be brought by a board member. Does that include an alternate or only if they're seated? How does that work?
I would think that would be only if they are seated. That is, so that comes out of the RSAs, that language.
Probably need advice from council on that. You have all the different words, you probably need to get advice. It's to the intent and purpose. For me, it doesn't put alternates, so when you speak globally about the board. Depends on whether you're in a working session or are you in a hearing. It's two scenarios.
If you look at the law on disqualification, or really any of these other ones, these are any of the other RSAs that the bylaws are based on, the law distinguishes between member and alternate, so
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Still have a motion on the table. Do we have more discussion? Okay, shall we call a vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstention? Any nays? Thank you. Okay, so now we have, still on rules and procedures, we're talking about
Greg,
changes.
Can you see that?
Yes, you can, I think we can be seated now, right? We passed that motion.
And we stick with that committee.
So we're continuing on with changes we would like to talk about with town council on other changes to rules and procedures. We have talked at different times about having some kind of code of conduct statement, and this is where that would go. I asked our town moderator what they use for the town meetings, which it seemed to, I've always felt was nicely done and seemed to be effective. I'm not proposing that we do this exactly, I'm proposing this as a general idea. What town moderator says is practice respect and civility at all times. We can disagree without being disagreeable or disrespectful. Before speaking, raise your hand and be recognized by the chair. The first time you are recognized to speak, please state your name and where in town you live. Address all comments and questions to me, the chair. He says the moderator, right? Address all comments, I, as chair, will recognize those who have not yet spoken to an issue before anyone who has spoken previously on the issue. Please add to previous comments, but do not just repeat what has just been said. So I guess we're looking for
Question,
ideas from other people, yes?
is this intended as a code of conduct for board members in discussion or for public comment?
It's going to apply, it should apply to everyone, board members and the public. That was quite clear at the municipal association session I just attended, that you can't have basically separate kinds of rules.
It seems a little unnecessary for board members to state their name and where they're from.
That's true, that's true.
Okay, I can barely hear you.
Sorry.
No, I just might have to do. You are a mask, if you could enunciate.
Just speak up a little more, yes, thank you.
Do you need to turn off the,
That's probably part of it too, but I can't,
Probably choose one thing or the other.
all I'm hearing from Lucas, we're static. We're hard to hear.
does anybody know how to shut it off?
Something to do with that thing up there.
No, it's the one on the wall.
Well, it's air conditioning and we have the door open, so it's
Yeah, it
probably
says do
working.
not shut the mini split off, but if we're going to leave the mini split on, we should shut the door.
Scott? Yeah, so you're right, it should be more appropriate for public hearing.
It seems like that, you know, while I generally think that the rules that we use in town meeting are appropriate and fairly simple and easy to understand, I think it would take a little bit more significant editing to modify it to our specific purposes.
For hearings or for work sessions? Or both?
Or either, for example, you know, we're like assuming that we all agree that it's not necessary for a board member to state their name every time they speak, like probably have to say something like, if a member of the public is speaking, they should start by stating their name and where they're from.
I will make that note.
So, and it's hard to run edits on something like this when I have it in front of me.
Well, what I thought I would do is collect information from you folks, get it to town council, get response, and then we have printed copies that we can all work off of.
Sure, that's reasonable.
If we,
Other issues that we want to include in,
I don't know if, it's not logical right here to me because we're jumping way ahead and it seems to me, we're at number 6, so we haven't approved everything from number 6 on. But I think you're referencing number 6. Oh, no, sorry, excuse me, number 8F, and you're talking about the conduct in public hearings. And a lot of what you just read is already covered in there. And that the chair will open the hearing. Number 3, the board may ask questions. Number 4, you gotta direct the question through the chair. Number 5, the applicant, the butter, any person who's directed may testify. Number 6, the person shall speak and identify themselves, which is the gist of what you just read,
Yes,
that
it
they
is.
haven't. So what I would like to add is as either a 4 or a 4A, And it's partly because of, there was a slight incident last meeting with the public at large. And I'd like to insert under where it says any person who desires to ask a question shall pose the question through the chair, and then add this as 4A. And I've been mindful of free speech. So this isn't in regards to anybody saying anything under the First Amendment of our Constitution. This has to do with decorum and behavior during a board meeting. And the verbiage I'd like to add is all other persons shall refrain from excessive talking among themselves, such as to be distracting to the proceedings, comma, the public, comma, or board members.
Do we have comments on that? First, let me say, I'm gonna send language to town council for review and approval, of course. So what I'm trying to collect here is suggestions from everyone.
Could you repeat that after the word refrain, please?
Excessive.
All other persons shall refrain from excessive talking among themselves, such as to be distracting to the proceedings, comma, the public, comma, or board members. And this can include not only people that are in here for a hearing in the public, but would apply to us also.
One thing about not having crosstalk or not having two people talking at the same time is now we're recording all meetings. We hope we will be recording all meetings. And it's very difficult to interpret from a recording if we have more than one person talking at a time. So that's it. So we're looking for other input for things people would like to have in public hearings, procedures, conduct.
Is this exclusive to public hearings or?
All, I think, it should be all, shouldn't it?
Number F is exclusive to public hearings.
Yes, that is exclusive. to public
Everything else
hearings.
where we would have public comment.
Correct, but what I'm interested in adding to our bylaws is the code of ethics. And that would be for members of the board.
You have it proposed, so
I do, actually, the town of Belmont has quite a substantial one for all elected officials and appointed officials. It's 4 pages. I don't think we need something that extensive, but in lieu of Canterbury having that, not having that as an ordinance, I think that the board should take it upon themselves to hold themselves to a higher standard. And I can send that Belmont's 4-page one and see.
Please send it to Lois.
Yes.
And let me remind us all that we have been instructed not to circulate any emails to each, independently to each other or reply all on any emails having to do with planning board business. So please send it to Lois and then I will get it to town council. Yes.
At the last select board meeting or recently, wasn't there a discussion about the select board writing a code of ethics that was applied to all boards?
we are working on it right now.
So there is one that is being written that is supposed to be generic for all town boards?
That's correct.
Should we be waiting for that to come down from the select board?
What do we think the time frame is on that?
I would say 2 weeks.
If we're lucky. I mean, honestly, we have several major issues, as you're all aware, before the select board. So, assuming nothing else.
I don't think that would be prohibitive of us holding ourselves to a standard. If it's a higher standard than what the select board asks of us, is that a bad thing?
I think that there's nothing that prevents us from investigating, looking at what we're suggesting and getting something to town council about it.
Nancy, I thought it said, I thought the town council had said, I'm sorry, I should be directing this to you. My understanding from those minutes was that the town council had suggested to the select board, and please correct me if I am wrong, that there should be a standard that applied to the whole town, and that each board should not have its own, and that was coming down from town council. Am I wrong about that?
I would say that this should apply to all the boards in town, I believe, is what we're planning on. Perhaps just to avoid duplication of effort, we should wait a few weeks for the selectmen, and if we don't like it, then we can add to it if it's insufficient.
I believe based on our schedule, it's gonna be like 3 weeks before we have a chance to really address this.
Yeah,
That's because it's in that long.
Well, yeah, but my point is they might finish theirs first.
Right, yeah.
That.
And do you know what the date was, or any of the select board members what the date that was discussed, so I can review the minutes?
But we discussed it last night.
You discussed it again last night, because I know I was at a meeting a while ago that discussed it. Okay, great.
Right, so where are we leaving this?
I got an amendment for letter D up above.
Hold on a second, we're not done with, we're not done with this. It seems to me we're not done. Would you please forward the Belmont thing to Lois? And I will inquire of town council, ask for a recommendation of how we should move forward, whether we should wait for the select board thing and should all be done, or what their advice is. Okay, more on that? Anything more on that before we move on? Rich, what was your next one?
In the same area up above on letter D.
So this would be on page 5.
Yes, page 5. Letter D. And I think all those days are relevant and pertinent. And if you get to the very last sentence, the issue that I take with is reasonable time. And I'd like to see a definitive time frame in there. I would think that if the applications and supporting materials are going into town hall 21 days before a hearing, that they should be able to get the documentation to us shortly thereafter. Give them a week to process or whatever they have to do in-house. I'd like to see at least 10 days, possibly 14 days. Replace that with the word reasonable time.
Okay, again, this is something that we will review with town council. But if we can give them direction that we're wanting to see 14 days or 12 days, that will certainly help. Other members of the board have input on this?
It would be better to have a number. What's reasonable to somebody is not reasonable to somebody else.
Sure.
Correct.
Well, I'm concerned about burdening or maybe even asking the opinion of the secretary is a problem here. And there's times where a reasonable time might be, the day before, if there's something happening quickly but generally I'm agreeing with Rich that it should be a long time before, but I don't get the secretary in trouble for doing whatever is
There can be mitigating circumstances.
May I ask a question? Is all applications and supporting materials, is that the same as all application materials and supporting documents? If those two are the same thing, then everything that is supposed to be available to board members before a meeting would have been submitted 21 days ahead.
Yeah.
And there shouldn't be anything coming in the day before. So we should be able to say
14 days should.
14 days, but I would like to know from Lois if that is doable.
Yeah, I mean. Yes, what it depends on at the moment, is Andy getting it, scanning it, and sending it to me. If the board,
Does 14 days seem reasonable?
Really.
So it means you have it for
7
7 days before it has to get be out to the board. And 2 of those days can be weekend days, and 1 of them can be a Friday when the
Well-
town office is closed, so, we
it's
should think
not,
about
it
this.
will not have been a problem for me. It could be a problem in the future if, as we hope, the new land use professional is hired. And her hours will be very different. She will be part-time in the office. So to me, it seems it would be helpful to know what the board would like. And then try and work that within what her hours will be.
I think the general gist is that the board wants it as soon as possible, but, I mean, like we said, at least 7 days before consideration of completeness, then that gives a 2-week window. And I feel like us getting things with 7 days to review them should be plenty. Right?
Well, we all have lives and we're all stuck doing other things too. So we've been 14, we've talked 14, 12, 10, and 7.
But the point is, there's nothing stopping, Lois and Mandy from getting things to us sooner than whatever time limit we set, but we don't wanna set them a time limit that's unachievable.
Correct.
I think the other thing is, I inherited a system that was about trying to send board members all the things for a meeting sort of all together, rather than drip feeding things as they come in. So it sounds as if you're asking more for, things it's in, let's get it out. Then I guess it would be sent out again with agenda materials.
The drip feeding problem is really difficult. Like, sometimes it's very difficult to assemble.
So public hearings are public hearings, so this would only be involving site plans and subdivisions, is that correct?
Currently, I mean, worst case scenario, usually, if we have a hearing on Tuesday, we usually get our stuff by Thursday, the Thursday before. I'd like to, well, you might have privy to see things.
No, I don't.
Okay, my point being is that I think I'd like a little bit more time. Because I'm spending my weekends on a volunteer board, looking over planning board materials. I'm not saying that I don't wanna do it, but
But if you're getting them on Thursday for a Tuesday, that's like a 4 to 5 day notice.
I'd like them at least a week ahead of
And,
time.
I'm saying, like, if 7 day minimum seems reasonable and theoretically achievable, but, making it achievable is not my job, so.
No, I think it's good to ask Lois to see what
Yeah.
her perception is and what you feel is achievable, seeing as you're the one that's getting us the documents.
Or both. I mean, if we change the system so that the board want to have things as soon as they're in here and I've created a digital file, sure, I can do that. But then if there are folks who tend to look at their planning board business, in the 24 hours before the meeting because they've had other things to do, then they would need to come out with the agenda material so that we've got everything together. That would cover both modes.
You don't wanna do it both ways, though. 'Cause then we'll get it twice,
Well, then the board will need to.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying that the agenda is difficult to have. The complete agenda is difficult to compile
It takes some time.
too far in advance.
Yeah.
So we're only talking here about the public, the hearing materials, so. I'm good, so, we've been on this for a while, I'm gonna suggest we go with 10 days.
Yeah, see what council says.
So, as soon as possible, but no later than 10 days, something like that. I will propose that to town council.
hate to even bring up this particular can of worms, but if we used something like a shared drive or Dropbox, have all of these documents dropped into a single place where we would all be looking at identical documents, and there would only be one instance of each one, and it would
But
probably.
then that would be a meeting outside.
That's a meeting.
If everybody can look at the same thing in
I
one
mean,
place.
Eliminate the ability to comment, and then you're all just looking.
Put it on the town website.
And like I said, it's a can of worms, but it would solve a lot of these problems.
Brendan should be.
It didn't look like there were a whole lot of seats. I was saying, I mean, sometimes,
There's not a lot of seats.
some towns
Seat
put
over here.
received applications on their website. And then
You can sit at the end of the table there, or you can sit over here if you'd like.
Did we just have a
Yeah, I
discussion on how to
I
share
can-
or show up?
Come on, we're
Sorry.
getting there.
bring with me, whose hat? I don't want to misplace. Oh, you mind leaving that here? Thanks.
Do you have another spot if you're gonna have everybody up there?
Yeah.
I will,
Oh, Jonas, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I didn't mind sitting here, but if you want
I didn't
everybody.
recognize you, Jonas, sorry.
That's all right.
John,
I don't think we're going
Yeah.
You can probably remove the extra copies, Cal.
Oh, who's having this thing?
Just toss it.
and then.
So bad for us.
Rick, I think my worth asking council if we can all view the same documents as long as. Thank you for this.
I will.
Because I do think that that's a
we
local
think that-
proposition.
Yeah, we've received applications, on, shared,
This of course assumes we have,
You're gonna have to pick up
technology
Dropbox.
and connectivity.
As long as it's-
Well, if we're gonna go all digital, next thing I'm gonna ask for is the town to buy me a laptop so I can access those things. If they want me to,
All of these things are accessible from any device with a connection to the internet.
That's big.
maybe I don't wanna use
Well, if you
access.
don't have a connection to the internet, you're not using your email either.
so, let's see, we're getting a little off topic, guys. I will
Sorry about the
inquire
camera.
with town council about, how we can, if there's a way we can share documents, without running into, like, problems or, what's it called,
Unnoticed meeting.
unnoticed meetings. So we're continuing through this procedures document.
Do we have to make any other comment on B, on page 5 at B, where the town council made a comment there? Do we have to approve that, or is that?
This is something, actually, B is something that we voted on and approved in, several months ago.
He's saying we don't have to do it the way we're doing it. Like, we don't have to not do it the way we're doing it either.
But we want to continue to do it this way, correct?
Yeah. We
Okay.
just made that decision fairly recently.
Right. Thank you, Ben.
Okay.
Can I just raise one issue about attendance? Because it's pertinent to do with the alternates. I don't know how many chairs to put out. I made 10 copies of things, but I honestly didn't know if we need 8 or 15. You know, we don't have a system of people letting somebody know whether they're going to come or not.
How would that work best for you?
Well, the other boards I've worked with, it's either the chair or the secretary. Let them know, so you know you have a forum. Who's coming?
If you gotta decide one way or the other, if you're gonna be here, you tell her you're coming, or if you're not gonna be here, you tell her you're not gonna be here. One
I
or
would
the other.
prefer the assumption that we are going to be here.
Right.
Say something if you're not.
So please notice the board if you can't attend the meeting.
Lois, how advanced of notice is helpful for you in terms of when you print and prepare the room?
Well, on that one, 24 hours, I was tend to do it. The town office is open on Tuesdays, we tend to do it on Tuesday. And hopefully that would allow, for this happening.
Yeah, it would seem like the sooner the better is useful for your making appropriate copies purposes, but then, notice of some kind at any point helps make sure we have a quorum, because
That will probably go backwards in the document, if you go back to page 3. Number 4. Beats the quorum. We probably need to put a little,
I'll see if the town council will go with that.
put a little A under number 4.
sort of assumed other people were already doing that.
Most board members are, but we have new alternates. who don't have it written as a policy. Really,
I
that's
think
why
I
we're
would
doing this.
certainly
is
feel less
because
obligated to
we-
notice anyone if I was still an alternate versus that's not like 100%.
Let's see, and I'll find out, but that probably needs to go to the planning board email rather than to a personal email. Let's see, there are a few other things that came, anybody else have anything? Otherwise, I'll move on to some things that came up at the municipal association meeting. All right.
Are we voting on these things or? are we
No,
waiting
because this
until we have
all,
council comment?
we'll go to town council and come back and
Just
see what he
wondered.
says. So here's one from New Hampshire Municipal Association. How are items added to the agenda? They're suggesting that we have a specified way of doing that. Typically, it will be, of course, the secretary and the chair, and then 2 members of the board, majority vote of the board. We have feelings about that.
How does it happen currently?
Currently, it happens with Lois or me, or pretty much anybody, any member of the board. So I don't ever recall a board member bringing something up and us saying we can't talk about it. So,
I've added things to the agenda from time to time by contacting Lois.
It happens.
so I think what they're getting at is that if the secretary says, too busy, you can't do that, and the chair says, I don't like that idea, then what is a board member's recourse for getting it on the agenda? I mean, a board member can bring it up at any meeting, but to get it on the agenda, it's probably a better way to do it if,
Well, it doesn't leave a board member silenced because on new business, you raise your hand and
right,
insist.
I like the way it's been going. Greg, you've always been amenable to any suggestions or propositions that people have spoken to you about. I don't think there's any hostility with you or Lois. I mean, it just, if we need something or we want something, I think the way that it's been working is fine and is working.
So we bring it up during new business, and if the topic is too large, then we decide to put it on the agenda.
okay.
I feel like having to vote on adding items to the agenda feels like something that's gonna take up a lot of extra time without a lot of benefit.
I don't think I'm suggesting voting.
I wasn't saying you weren't.
So I'm gonna propose this to town council and see what they come back with. Let's see, another thing they suggested is, this is actually more about the hearing, conduct of the hearing. A time limit on comments. So we're not gonna let people talk for 2 hours, we're not gonna let them talk for 20 minutes. Apparently, most boards have a time limit, say 2 minutes, 3 minutes per person, something like that.
This hasn't been a problem.
It hasn't been a problem.
It hasn't been a problem for us.
If it becomes a problem, then we can revisit this, but
Well, the chair might wish it were in the rules the first time it's a problem.
Right, that's what they said at the municipal association is you're better to have something in your procedures that you can fall back on if there is a problem.
You created a response to someone that looks retaliatory.
yeah, I understand that.
2 minutes, 3 minutes?
I'd be in favor of doing something more amorphous, you know. Suggest people don't get duplicative or something like that. Because there's topics that take 5 minutes to talk about, and some topics take 10 minutes to talk about. And I know the legislature shuts things down at 3 minutes, and I think that's problematic for some issues.
I mean, but could we have a time limit, like, and you know, chair or board discretion allow somebody more time?
Or if we know that there's a hearing where we have 20 people waiting to speak, say, we have a large number of people here tonight, we're going to be requesting.
A time limit can be set on a hearing by hearing basis.
Or that there is a time limit that can be invoked as necessary.
Yeah.
I have a question for
Would it,
the public, and I finish.
can I just write on what she just said?
Sure.
In terms of a time limit, can a time limit be invoked? Even if it isn't a rule, can it be invoked at the beginning of a hearing? Because we have such a big response that we want to limit to 2 minutes.
That's an interesting.
I'd be interested in that. Megan, did you want to?
Well, Calvin, what is the time limit for speaking? Because I remember I've spoken before the zoning board and Joe definitely cut me off.
There's generally no time limit.
There's no
As long as
specific.
it pertain, as long as you're being productive in your commentary and you're not being repetitive, Joe has a tendency to let you talk, whether it's 10 minutes or 20 seconds, as long as there's,
It's Joe time.
well, I mean, as long as it's pertinent to the dialogue, there's never been a time cap, but if you're repeating the same thing, we're gonna move the meeting forward to.
That was on a night where it was particularly busy and lots of people were talking, so.
So I'm gonna suggest that I ask the town council if we can say time limit may be set by the board. Time limit for testimony may be set by the
Obviously, we
board.
don't want to find out we need a time limit because somebody decides to walk in and filibuster the planning board, like we all have homes we would like to return to eventually, but
I think 2 minutes is appropriate.
2 minutes, not enough.
Some issues can take a lot of time just to frame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if we
Issue.
can discuss this with town council and perhaps get some idea of a way to set a time limit that has some flexibility or like case by case basis capacity, that seems like it would be ideal.
That's what I was suggesting, that the board can decide that they're gonna put a time limit on if we've got 30 people here.
This comes up in courts daily. You know, if there's a 1 hour hearing and there's 10 witnesses, it's like, you have 2 minutes each or something. You know? And that's done on a case by case.
Okay, well, let's see if we can get some language from town council. This one surprised me. Use of personal electronic devices. They're recommending that there be no use of personal electronic devices in a board meeting. The reason being that then they named a number of situations where there were court cases, right to know cases, demanding to know what Joe was doing on his phone at 5:06. And it looked to me like they were emailing, texting back and forth in the meeting and having non-public discussions. What they suggest is if you're going to use a computer if you need to look things up and present documents, that it be not a personal computer, and that there be a display screen that shows what is being shown on the computer. Thoughts?
If you're using your device to text each other, that's a straight out easy violation of the right to know law.
Correct.
And I think, when you take your oath, you're not, you're doing that, there's something else the problem is. And there's at least two people who are gonna be privy to that. I think one of them should call it out. I think the whole thing's a little bit ridiculous. I keep my phone on in case my daughter calls me. She doesn't. but-
I frequently use my iPad to pull up Google Maps to look at locations that we're talking about.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of really legitimate uses for a personal device.
I work digitally mostly, and they want to sequester my computer. I have nothing to hide, so they're welcome to.
I mean, you could be shopping on Amazon, or, you don't know. But my mother was recently in assisted living, she had dementia, she recently passed away. I was getting calls repeatedly from the place because I was a power of attorney. So I had to provide them assistance and direction and stuff, so it's just, not having access to my phone would be problematic for me. I don't have the same situation with my mother anymore, but I have a daughter, I have a wife, to me, removing my phone away from me, where my family cannot access me during an emergency. I don't like that.
I hear that. I had a lot of the same concerns. I guess the thing for me to do is ask town council what their and some of these things actually apply more than just to the planning board. They apply to other boards and things, and
I think we shouldn't even bother pursuing that.
Like,
I
if
think
you're
it's
gonna
open,
insist
yeah.
on no personal electronic devices in meetings, then for accessibility reasons, if nothing else, we're gonna have to have town electronic devices.
correct.
And I don't see the town buying all of us an iPad.
I was looking for a laptop.
Well,
Like, my
Can you
iPad
get
is
a
how I
laptop?
take notes, it's how I pull up the documents we're working on, like,
I agree, Logan, I'm frequently
Full
on
on
my
post
phone,
it.
trying, looking at the zoning ordinance or whatever,
Yeah.
RSA
That's
or
it.
whatever.
what they suggested is that if you needed to do that, there would be one person with a computer and there would be a screen that everybody could see. And so that everybody knew what was being on the screen.
I mean, that sounds good in theory, but it's utterly
It's
impractical.
over the top.
I feel the same way.
I suggest you don't even approach town council with that one, it's just opening up a can of worms.
Don't spend any town money on that.
Anyone ever wants to see what map I pulled up on my phone, I'm happy to flip my screen around and show you.
Let's see, another one is relations by blood or marriage on a board. Actually, municipal association recommends against restricting that. I know, Howard, you have some, I think you're on a board that has more than one,
The Community Power Committee has two sets of husbands and wife on it at the moment. And we don't consider it a problem. We've been delighted to have the additional input, but this is the planning board. This is not the Community Power Committee.
Our lawyer for the association, said against it, but it's allowed.
Today at the municipal association hearing, they said that there is absolutely no law in the state of New Hampshire that prohibits married people from being on the same board.
but the board can have a policy against it. If the board so chooses.
typically had an appropriate code of ethics that constrained any conflict of interest on paper, satisfied.
That would take care of.
Talking about Canterbury, small town.
Well, that's the issue they brought up.
People,
That's the issue they brought up is it's so hard to get people to serve on boards that. you don't
here in
want to-
Manchester, and, you know,
Yes,
you get
yes,
town
yes.
council, I mean, I can see a conflict of interest there, but, you know, sometimes your best ally is your spouse, and
Well, that's the
they.
problem.
But in terms of
That's why you're married.
representation on the board, I don't always agree with my spouse. I don't know.
I think Clarence Thomas has answered this question for us.
Are you, I'm Jimmy.
All right, I
She can
think
be your
we,
strongest ally, and she can be your fiercest advocate, so.
so I think what the board has decided, the feeling seems to be to me from the board that, we think it can be addressed with ethics provisions and does not have to be strictly prohibited.
I respect you bringing it up, but yeah, I now.
And next one is recusal procedures. We do have recusal procedures in our rules and procedures.
This is the disqualification section.
Yeah,
Starting on the
There's qualifications different than.
What page?
Bottom of 3, top of 4.
so this says that when you refuse, you have to leave the table, sit on the side. There's some people that feel that one should actually leave the room if you're recusing yourself and not be present in the room at all. I've talked to both municipal association about this and town attorney about this. It appears that we can recommend it. It does not mean, it appears that we cannot prohibit it. The reason being, as has been explained to me, is that by serving on the board and recusing yourself, you do not give up your rights as a citizen to participate. So, we have a policy that discourages it. And I'm happy to review this again with town attorney, but,
I think leaving the table is sufficient.
Yeah.
Practically speaking, when we're meeting in December at 7 o'clock, if you leave the room, where do you go?
Also, you have a right to speak as a public citizen.
Yeah.
I mean, I've taken advantage of that at hearings where I've recused myself, but I had specific knowledge about the topic at hand. And I would like to offer my comments. What they said at the municipal association today is you must be treated as a member of the public.
But I could see where Megan, you know, the code of ethics would come into play. So where if a board member were recused in any manner, no facial expressions, no sign language, no hinting about trying to guide somebody that's on the board,
The texting.
no,
I roll in.
Yeah, but you get to raise,
You know what I mean?
but you do get to raise your hand, get called upon by the chair.
But
and-
no,
and
no
say
facial,
what you want to say.
right, no facial expressions helping to guide somebody that isn't recused on the board. You know what I mean? Am I
Well, you can't tell the
explaining?
face of the public that they can't make faces.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, it would fall under possibly a code of ethics. I don't know how.
I think it
I'm not a
would be,
lawyer.
I think it would be appropriate to include language that the recused member may not in any manner attempt to influence the outcome of a matter on which he or she has an interest, nor in their public statements can they utilize any information obtained in their capacity as a member.
No, that's not.
No, I disagree with that because there are, I have institutional knowledge about things that have been done in the past in this town and on this board. And I, as a member of the public, am entitled to have an opinion about a matter at hand. I would have to express my opinion as any other member of the public expresses it. And I would count on the code of ethics of every person on this board to simply listen to what I said factually and not vote because it's me and they know me. I think any member of this board should have the right to testify about anything that any other member of the board can probably testify to.
Any member of the public.
Any member of the public, and town council has been clear, the municipal association was clear. Board members do not leave their rights to speak at the door because they're board members. If they're recused, they must be treated like any other member of the public.
Can you distinguish for me the difference then between a public member commenting with knowledge obtained as a member of the board and just sitting here and having the discussion with everybody?
I don't understand what you're saying, Evan.
I guess I have two pieces. One, I mean, the board should only be getting information through public processes where they accept documents that they then talk about in the public. So really, any information the board has should already be public.
I mean, if we don't, sorry,
It's the second half is, I mean, there's statutory butters, is the number one reason a land use board member is gonna be disqualified, and they have such a right that they get statutory notice of a proceeding happening. Obviously, they're allowed to participate in the same manner as all other rebutters and members of the public.
that's kind of what I was gonna say, if we don't allow board members to participate as members of the public, then when it's an issue of somebody who is an abutter, we end up having less rights than any other member of the public to speak, which does not seem appropriate.
Or
fair,
legal.
Or legal, yeah.
I'm going to propose that I talk to town council and see if there is language that can clarify this better for us and the way that, and then bring language back here and see if that addresses our issues.
The language I read is from the code of ethics that I sent as an example.
Mr. Chair, can I respond to something Brendan said?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you said it only parenthetically, but this is not a judicial body. And I feel like as a member of this board, it's not only my ability, but my duty to go and canvass my neighbors when there's an issue and bring facts that aren't brought by parties to particular disputes. You know, this isn't a court where you know the party brings something and that's that's only what the jurors can consider. I'd better be able to consider, whether some road is paved or not, just based on my own knowledge. And I don't think you intended to restrict it, so, but.
No, what I was saying is, there was a comment about not using information you get as a member of the board. The board gets information in public meetings with documents that are submitted to the board. So anything the board has should be something the public has. It's the whole reason for the open meeting law. So
We
I
should
meant
not
it to
have
be,
secret information.
there is no restriction on a person related to information the board has because that's public information.
That's how it should, yes. Also, we are a quasi judicial board.
No, we're
And
not.
yes, we are.
The zoning board is, we are not.
We are not.
I asked our town council and they said we are, and I said, he said that we are not
Brendan, are we
investigating.
a quasi judicial board?
I think we do some things that are not of a judicial nature, which is when we're doing zoning ordinances, all these other things. But when you're receiving like a subdivision or a site plan application, that's something that really is in a judicial capacity because you're making a decision that's either appealable to the ZBA or appealable directly to the planning board.
Quasi judicial is a legal term of art that has to do with immunity of judges. And I don't think you mean that, right?
No, I mean what the New Hampshire Municipal Association says, planning boards and zoning boards of adjustment act as quasi judicial bodies when reviewing
So-
use and land development applications.
So Josh, so our ordinance already cites, right, 673-14 regarding refusal. And that statute on disqualification talks about when the board is acting in a judicial capacity, and that's when we're reviewing an application to see if it complies with our ordinance. So that's the only time that we're acting in that role. But
Okay.
when we are acting in that role, you know, when there's a butters got notice, that kind of thing, that's where people are recusing themselves if they're, you know, direct abutter or some other issue.
All right, so I'm not sure where that leaves us here.
I think it's important to also note that we do have a legal duty to maintain, do our very best to maintain the, at least the appearance of impartiality. And I cannot say that that is something this board has done well so far. And I think that putting language in a code of ethics that will hold us to a standard can help change that perception.
Okay, we've decided that we're going to proceed looking at a code of ethics.
Yes, and that includes the, you know,
And that would
the participation of alternates that are
include
recused.
recusal. So, okay, so that's where we are on this then. I think that is all the notes I had from this meeting on with Central Regional Planning on procedures. Anything else on procedure that we should be addressing at this point?
There's nothing in here about the standards for our procedure of minutes.
Oh, yes, that's true. Thank you. There is. This, but do you have this page, this last page that comes from,
Previous meeting.
it came, yes, it was at a previous meeting, did not come at this one? No. Okay, here's the language that town council put together. The board secretary shall draft meeting minutes and make available to the public within 5 business days of the meeting. These draft meeting minutes will be sent via email to board members for board members to review. Board members shall not reply to the secretary with suggested changes, but should bring such suggestions to the board's attention at the next public meeting. Okay, then that's where we were with this at our last meeting. Then Brendan suggested alternate language, which I then sent to town council. Sorry, I'm trying to find the right, oh, here, pass these down. I think it's on the second page. There's more, I have 10 copies. I read too many only that way. That one back.
Share.
Anybody else need them?
Do you have any for this side?
Yes. Two copies. So Megan, thank you for reminding me. So it's on the second page at the bottom. My comment was, at the last meeting, several board members requested that meeting minute change requests be sent to the secretary, only the secretary, no other board members, and not reply all. For the secretary to compile and not distribute until the next board meeting where they will be discussed. Does that work for you? Then you'll see his response is at the top. Greg, I'm fine with both points. So this was one point. What was the other point? The other point was to add to the alternates. Alternates may serve on subcommittees and may vote on subcommittee recommendations to the board. So we've got two different things here. We've got one, the change to the minutes process. And we have one that is the change to.
Where are these changes going?
They're going in, one goes in the, for the meeting, the minutes one goes in the minutes section. I can find that.
I have a question about this 5 days. If the secretary has draft minutes, why is that a public document? And I'm thinking of, I guess I see the first draft of the secretary's minutes as a first draft, might have errors of identity, it might have,
We've got a council answer on this. Because like all of these public meetings have to have publicly available minutes within 5 days. Since we can't have final minutes within 5 days, that's absurd. The draft is the best we can do.
There's
so as
actually,
long as they're
That
labeled
means
draft.
you have
Yes, they have to be labeled, right?
there's actually no legal requirement to finalize or approve minutes. All that is necessary are draft.
That seems problematic.
Yeah.
Let's not do that.
Greg, a step beyond the how we communicate changes, where is the language addressing who is compiling the draft minutes?
I'm trying to find. Anybody else see the minutes thing here?
See minutes all.
Sarah, I don't see anything about minutes other than a, what is the order of business?
I do not recall seeing anything about that. So that's for sure.
Yeah, there's nothing in this about the minutes.
Just give me 1 second to go through here, because I'm pretty sure. I'm sorry, I should have marked this more clearly for myself.
Are we sure that the minutes aren't covered in some other document somewhere?
They will be under the regulations. On regulations, that's something the subcommittee will be looking at.
That's the regular, those are site plan regs. So what this is what he came back with, and this is the entirety of it, I think. The board secretary shall draft meeting minutes, make available to the public within 5 business days of the meeting. These draft meeting minutes will be sent via email, what you said. And then there's the addition from the bottom of page 2. That meeting minutes changes can go out to the secretary. It seems to me like I need to put this language together and to bring back to the board, because it's not complete here. So I will take this back to town council and make sure we have it right before we move forward.
And that's gonna happen somewhere in the bylaw.
That will be added into the rules and procedures.
My recommendation
I
is the
suggest-
secretary and secretary alone compiles the draft minutes.
I really think that's fair. That's fair. There should be a designated person, a chair, somebody who can help with the draft. It's hard to make a first draft.
How do you eliminate bias or the perception of bias outside of the public eye?
I don't see.
You have a recorded meeting.
No, we're talking about minutes being edited outside of the
Yeah,
public.
but you want bias or perception of bias. I mean, the minutes are gonna come out. If somebody wants to see something happening here, they can watch this. It's usually available on the YouTube afterwards. I mean, they can make comparison of notes. I don't see any problem with Greg and Lois formulating a final draft. None whatsoever.
One great comment is.
Yeah, bias can exist with just the secretary, so I don't see that there's some additional bias. And we've elected I think the chair is the right person to do it, but anyone could be nominated or directed to do it. I don't think there's any additional bias by having the second person look over the shoulder of the of the secretary. We have an experienced secretary here, but, you know, there have been times where secretary is brand new and mistakes are just legion and, getting a second pair of eyes on a track just seems like a reasonable thing.
And reduces the amount we have to do in the subsequent meeting.
So we don't have a motion on the floor right now, so we should probably table this until we get back.
Yeah,
Revised language from
With
town
complete
council.
language suggestion.
Greg, no, you were gonna take, in addition to these other suggested changes in the order of business, this is just another thing that we're gonna add for you to run by council. The only thing is that we have changed the addition that Brendan made to what town council had proposed.
Right, and then
And
the town
there's-
council responded.
And
said
the
it's
only
okay.
thing, and the only thing that I see there is that board members shall not reply to the secretary with suggested changes. And we're gonna strike that, and we're gonna add that we will respond individually to the secretary, where
Only.
she will, the secretary only, and not hit reply all. And she will compile suggested changes by members, and she's gonna present those at the next meeting for us to acceptance or approval, or discussion.
That's
So that's just another thing to run by council that we're adding to the rules of
Correct.
procedures, and I would suggest that it be added in article, so in our rules of procedures, Article 4, meeting and conduct of business. Article 4, number 1, where it says regular meetings on page 2.
Yep.
Right after that, as to how those meetings are gonna, minutes of the meetings are gonna be taken.
okay, I will add that to the list for the town council to review.
Mr. Chair, you had a question?
Yes,
I don't necessarily know if it's a question or a statement, like as you all know, we're on the ZBA, and the way that we conduct our minutes is our secretary records audio for every hearing. So that way, if there is an instance where there's a discrepancy or some clarification, the audio tapes are kept on archive in the town hall. I know the town's trending to go now,
that's what we're
you know,
trying to do
video,
here.
but that's just the way that we found. Our secretary takes them, transcribes them, and then it goes there, so we don't have any interaction with them, and it's been working.
So that's gonna be a step above your audio. We have audio and video right there.
I understand, I was just stating one person that deals with it all.
Thank you, Bill. So. Do we have more with, rules and procedures we need to address?
I think we hammered that.
We shall now move on to requested revisions to April 9 draft minutes. Like this. We made some of these corrections at our last meeting, I believe. Let's just confirm that we made those corrections.
Complete copies of the actual draft minutes, someone,
Got them last.
We got it last meeting.
not on the table.
No.
Yeah, no.
It's probably less useful to me than to somebody else, since I wasn't actually at the meeting in question. Just wondering, sorry, there was a copy.
So, would you give me a copy, Lois, and if there's a question, I can read the. Okay, we made some changes last time. Are those incorporated in this document, Lois?
No, what I just gave you is what is on the website as the current reference.
Oh,
And then the other document is from Megan.
So we, at the last meeting, we proceeded to attempt to do this, and then we cut it off.
right.
Were those changes at the beginning part of that?
Apparently not, because I'm looking at not line 80
Okay.
and it does not reflect the change
Okay.
that we approved. So we had the name wrong and we thought, Hillary.
Oh, no, on the minutes of the, 2024, April 23rd minutes at line 138. Megan began going through a list of places where corrections were needed. The first 3 or 4 edits were agreed upon.
All right, so that would be this one, line 80. That's been agreed upon.
I thought what was agreed at that meeting was that Richard asked Megan to do minutes to incorporate the corrections. So if I'm to do that, I need a Word document to put all these in.
well, we-
So my recollection was that when everyone discussed what language would actually change, that having something in writing meant that when the board agreed on some change, was that you could take something that's in paper, so when you go to make it, instead of us having to read to you 3 or 4 sentences and you trying to write it down, that you could just make a note to make this change afterwards, so you have it in writing, but not that there'd be a whole new document.
So that's why I revised this
That's why I-
document to include the language that I'm stating instead of
And
us coming up with the language in real time.
before we get too far, can I propose something?
What is it?
So that there isn't an unnecessary burden on Lois in making a lot of changes in the minutes. Would it be acceptable to keep the original, whichever draft of the minutes that Lois has? And she has that this be added to the minutes as an addendum.
No.
I don't think so, because the board has to approve each one of these changes if we're gonna make these changes. So it seems the way we are right now, the best way to move forward is to go through the changes and review them.
And we're working from, we're working from back.
Yes,
No, not that.
not that,
There's an updated one that was just handed out. You guys asked me to put the language so that we weren't coming up with the language in real time. So I'm reiterating what Brendan just said.
Oh, wait a minute, so
And
it's
so
this?
it is that, yep.
proposed correction is that Hillary asked about those firearms being discharged. Does anybody have a problem with that? Okay. I don't think we need to vote on all of these issues, right? Line 61, 62, Greg had sent members a document summarizing policy for alternates based on the planning board handbook for New Hampshire. Proposed correction. Greg sent members an email summarizing recommendations for alternate participation based on the planning board handbook for New Hampshire. Specifically noted to suggested change the board's current procedures on alternate participation to allow alternates to participate in discussions at hearings and that all alternates be seated at the table. That's probably my,
Sorry,
go ahead.
I don't remember that level of detail.
No.
That's just a memory issue. And I thought the way it was stated is general enough that it stated the issue that we talked about.
Other opinions?
I agree with Josh.
Any other opinions?
The specificity is important, and gives clarity to the fact that the planning board handbook for New Hampshire is not a policy document, so that is actually factually incorrect. And that the suggestions for changes to alternate procedures in our bylaws is not policy, it was what we were to discuss.
But while
Megan's first sentence is better than mine was. Greg sent members an email summarizing the recommendations for alternate participation based on the planning board handbook in New Hampshire.
Period. Rather than policy, we're crossing out policy and putting in recommendations, is that what you're proposing?
I think that's what Megan proposed.
I propose what's written here.
Yeah, but in your early document, you claimed that Greg misrepresented that. In his statement, he says almost word for word the same sentence that you're proposing. But then you added specifically, and that's where you digress.
Yeah.
And whether it's changing the board, the current board's procedures, or, and I'll disagree with you that the handbook for planning board in New Hampshire, while it might not be a quote unquote policy document, it is a document provided by the state to planning board members in how to run or how to adhere to things that we are presented with in a planning board hearing or meeting in general.
It's guidance.
So while it's not a policy document, I don't think Greg said it was a policy document. It's guidance for us. And it's produced by the state of New Hampshire. So I see
agree,
nothing
that's
wrong,
what
so
I-
I don't think that he misrepresented, I think you're misrepresenting in that you're putting a lot of verbiage in there that I don't recall and Josh doesn't recall.
I do believe there's a recording we can review. But the topic that we were discussing and why line 162 was mentioned was because we were discussing changes to our procedures and bylaws on alternate policy. And the chair was stating his opinion on what he thought the proposed changes should be, which is what that line is in reference to. So that is what the discussion was about.
So you're also proposing that we remove some language. About 5 alternates cannot vote, make motions or second a motion to be in deliberative discussions. Well, does the board want to schedule a meeting where we review the recording?
Right, I'm fine with changing it to a document summarizing guidance. If folks are getting hung up on my exceptional memory and specificity, that's fine, because the issue here is that it's not a policy document.
Would just
So-
a question. If there's going to be a significant amount of discussion and rewording on each individual one of these, it might be advisable to vote on them one at a time.
Oh,
Yeah. All right. Let's go back, line 80. All those in favor? Aye. Now we're on to line 162. And Joshua and Rich are feeling that it's good the way it is. Megan wants some changes, and you've reduced your request from what you have here to simply changing the word policy to
Guidance
guidance, not recommendation.
or recommendations, that's fine.
all right. Does everybody feel comfortable with recommendation? We're just changing the word policy to recommendations.
Move that change to the minutes.
Second, all those in favor?
I'll abstain from voting on changes to these minutes because I wasn't present
Thank you.
for the purposes of tonight.
Line 186 to 189.
I think Megan's proposed correction is more accurate.
I disagree, where she took out, which noted there is a section in the bylaws and procedures document from 2011. I did say that, word for word.
I didn't
And
take
that's
that out.
not in your proposed change at all.
Rich noted that the document probably needed updating as it is from 2011. It's right there.
But I said, no, you didn't say that. I said that there is a section in the bylaws and procedures document from 2011. You totally admitted that.
Want you to agree on something.
I'm not quite following. Can you clarify?
I can reread it again if you'd like.
I think he's saying the correction is incorrect.
The correction is incorrect. You admitted what I said and you paraphrased it below. You're not saying that I noted there's a section in the bylaws. You said that I read it verbatim.
There's
And
no
that I noted that the document probably needs updated.
Rich, sections in the bylaw are not separately dated. The entire document is from
Megan,
2011.
in number 3 here, lines 186, 189. If you are not agreeing with the first part and you're proposing correction, there must be a difference there.
There is.
Okay, and I'm saying that in the beginning part, in the first part, there's nothing to correct there. I did say those words. So you're making words I said very different.
I move to leave it alone.
We have a second.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those abstain? All those against?
Nay.
The change is approved.
No, change is not.
I mean, sorry, the change is not approved. Thank you, Rich. Line, number 4, line 192. Megan added she had concerns about there being a couple involved with one of the alternates. Proposed correction, then Finn expressed an ethical concern based on disqualifying bias of the chair being the sole person responsible for seating alternates, considering the chair is married to an alternate.
I think Megan's proposal is more accurate.
Other comments? I don't remember the exact language, but it certainly is, seems to me to be
That's what she
the point of what she's concerned about. So we have a motion to accept, number 4.
motion to accept number 4.
Seconded.
All those in favor? Aye. Number 4 is approved. Missing from summary after line 197, proposed correction. Greg noted that he does not always appoint Hillary and stated that he would table the discussion of alternate policy until later in the meeting under agenda item rules of procedures and bylaws.
I move that we include that.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Line 201, Megan asked about this again later in the meeting, and Greg requested that alternate policy be put on the next work session agenda. Proposed correction, remove the summary of this discussion should not include information from a discussion that had not happened yet at this point in the meeting.
I'm confused. Is there something in the draft that includes information from discussion that didn't yet happen?
Line 201 is that.
Yes, that was included in one of Greg's edits. It was not in the original document. It was added that that's in a section of the minutes, in which this was not discussed. It was added that something was discussed later, and the minutes should be in order of things discussed.
I don't remember.
So where, I mean, this definitely happened, so do you have a place where it's going back in, or?
It is already referenced in the appropriate spot.
It is
This is
already,
just added again.
Okay, so we're looking for a
Or
motion.
what pages or whatever, where's that? I recall seeing it, but I don't see it now.
It was, I believe it was also added as an action. item.
Oh, it's right underneath it, item 8, missing.
No, I think you're right, actually.
Right, well, that was definitely said, so where is it, or where do we put it?
I think it's kind of a moot point, if it didn't get said then it should be removed from that location.
Where does it go?
It is on line 2. I see that.
Is it not this?
Oh, it is that, thank you.
So item 8 is the putting it back in where it belongs.
Yes, okay, thank you. So, motion to approve,
Motion to delete the stuff identified in item 6.
and we're looking for a second.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we removed
Is the
that.
secretary being able to record all this?
Number 7, line 229, Greg states that his document should be in the handbook. Greg states the town of Canterbury Planning Board Rules of Procedure and Bylaws should be in the member binders. I guess confusion between handbook and binders, and
I didn't understand, should be, seemed ambiguous. What I understood you to mean was that it ought to be. Not that it already is.
okay, here's where I come from on that, is that it was in my binder, it is in my binder. So I was assuming that it was in other people's binders as well.
Yeah, and my clarification was just a matter of throughout the meeting, we've been referring to the handbook as the municipal, the planning board
I see,
handbook, so
I
that was confusing. But
Yes,
that document's
that
not,
is
he
confusing.
meant our binders.
Oh, got it.
To add some light to that, Greg was surprised that I had it in my binder. I had gotten a copy of the rules and procedures from Mandy when I first joined the board, hence it being in my binder. Greg made a comment vocally about he was surprised that it was there,
That's true.
and there was some confusion as to whether, and that's admitted, you didn't capture that.
And I didn't volunteer it at the time, but I have a thing in my binder the entire time.
That's not on our list of proposed changes, which would you like to
No,
put it in? Okay.
And that was in the handbook or the
So line
Rules.
set, the number 7, line 229.
I proposed, I moved that we make the changes.
Seconded.
All those in favor? Aye. Agenda item 8, rules and procedures, missing from summary after line 2244 in the minutes. Proposed correction. Megan noted that we had not revisited the discussion of alternate procedures, which the chair had said in discussion of agenda item 5, that we would discuss agenda item 8.
So now I understand what this meant. I was, my initial reaction to this. Now I get it. I think this is accurate.
She reiterated both efficiency and ethical concerns previously mentioned. Chair responded, this would require more discussion and offered that it could be done in subcommittee or discussed by the board as a whole. Megan recommended that bylaws and procedures not be discussed in subcommittee and stated that it should be decided on by the entire board. The chair requested that alternate policy be put on the agenda for discussion at the next meeting. Any problems?
I move we amend the minutes with, just like it says here.
A second?
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Abstain. John and Logan, right?
Yeah, I'm abstaining
And
from
Rich.
all
And Rich.
decisions regarding what we put into these minutes, because I wasn't there.
So then how many votes do we have for? 3. We need 4 for a majority, right?
Who's our alternate?
Does Ken not vote?
He tries not.
Are you also abstaining?
Pardon?
Oh, are you abstaining?
Yes.
I like the board to decide what they want to say.
So we have 3-4, 3 in favor and 2.
Is it possible to seat an alternate who happened to be there at the meeting to resolve this issue? The motion carries. Well, that's a problem because we eliminated
Yeah.
reference to this entire issue before. We have to, we can't just leave it hanging without, because it occurred. And in fact,
Does a
today's
majority
meeting
vote
is,
require that it be a majority of people voting yes, or just a majority of people vote yes rather than no? Because we have no votes.
Okay, Brendan, do you
Yeah,
have any
abstentions.
enlightenment for
Your
us?
rules have it, but I mean, it's not a quorum issue and it seems like there's only yes votes. So.
Right. Okay, we're going to say it's majority pass. Agenda item 9, NASH application update, attorney letter, missing from summary. Prior to refusal, the chair handed out a copy of a letter from Alfred Nash's attorney to each seated member of the board and stated it was not a hearing. Member asked what we were supposed to be deciding if it wasn't a hearing. Attorney Hall replied they were here to, if the board had a response to the letter.
hold on.
There's additional stuff regarding this letter on the next page before anyone starts worrying that this is in.
So we're dealing with item 9 here right now, so let's do 9 and then we'll move on to 10.
There was a whole lot of confusion about exactly what was going on.
Yes.
I don't remember who said what, but
That's what happens in the next couple of minutes. That's why I said what I just said.
I believe what Megan has here is captures the essence of it anyway. I did state it wasn't a hearing. I did pass out the letter.
That's my recollection as well.
So can we have a motion to approve this change?
to adopt the proposed correction.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye. Abstaining? Nays?
John,
Seconded. Line 253, Rich commented that he had not seen the letter before. It was also the first time it was seen by Kent. Proposed correction. All members made mention that they had not seen this letter.
It was not all, because I know I had seen, I think some others, other than John. Some had, some hadn't.
Lies.
Why? Because I made that comment very clearly. There was nobody else talking. I commented that I had not seen the letter. Kent also said that he had not seen it. I remember him vocally saying that. There was no other board member saying that they hadn't seen the letter. They were, Megan, you were sitting right next to me during that meeting, and you did not say anything.
There is a
All right.
recording.
So
Why
yeah,
don't we resolve this by saying some people had not seen it? And without getting to exactly who had not.
My question is,
Chair-
why did
Chair, point of
some
order, there's-
board members see it and not all board members see it ahead of time?
Excuse me?
Josh, you did say you didn't have it because you weren't gonna, you said, I just had this piece of paper and there's too much to read right now to go on with it.
No, I had seen it before the meeting, I don't know.
I think.
So then why would you say that you had not seen the paper?
I had seen your lawyer's letter, I don't know why it came to me.
On the recording, it shows that you said you did not see it.
Oh, all right.
All right.
Because you said there was too much to read.
So we have a
You sure
proposal
Rich
to
didn't
change
say
this from all members to some members made mention they had not seen this letter before. There was substantial discussion of how the letter was sent, to whom it was sent, and confusion over why the board was just not seeing it. That seems roughly accurate to me. Anybody have a problem with it?
I make a motion that the amendment, on the amendment, be moved.
Did you say some members?
Some members, that's the only thing I've changed there, cross out all, put in some. So,
I would actually like to put the specific names of people who did see it and who did not.
I think to do that, we have to go back to the report and figure that out.
I know I verbally vocalized, nobody else, Ken said it, and no, we're the only two that I heard vocally say at that time.
I understand that's what you heard, but there is a recording.
And I don't know what I said, but I know I had seen it ahead of time.
So, there's a proposal on the floor that some members may mention that they had not seen this letter before. There was substantial discussion of how the letter was sent, to whom it was sent, and confusion over why the board was just now seeing it. I think that was moved. Did we have a second?
Second,
All those in favor? Aye. Line 256, number 11. Megan asked why it was not received earlier and when it get to town. Proposed correction. Megan asked the secretary why the letter was not included in the preparatory materials we were sent on April 8th and when the letter was collected from the mail. The secretary was not sure.
this is actually reflected in the original minutes that were changed to remove and put in that one line. So that was Lois's original recollection in the original minutes, and it was changed to the line you see here.
So this is moot?
No, my correction
Yeah.
is aligned with the original document.
I move that we adopt item 11, just because it's in conformance with my recollection.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any abstention? Logan, anybody else? Line 259, number 12, Ruth Hall asked a procedural question. What stage are we at? Proposed correction, Attorney Hall asked a procedural question regarding what stage the board was at in considering Mr. Nash's application.
Move to adopt this amendment.
Second. Megan seconded. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
I'm opposed.
You're opposed?
I'm opposed also. I remember her saying those
Yes.
words verbatim. I mean, while it's very eloquent and you added some verbiage, Megan, I do not remember her saying those exact words. The first line is more specific to me.
there is a recording. Also, Attorney Hall
Very
requests.
good, Megan. We don't have that right here. Okay, we can refer to that later.
Rich, please speak to me respectfully as I'm
Yes, please,
speaking
be-
respectfully to you. Attorney Hall requested explicitly to be addressed by the board as Attorney Hall. That was reflected in Lois's original minutes and changed to Ruth Hall in GM edits.
What's GM mean?
Right, me. Wait a minute, we're not,
Where, I just lost where we are right now.
yeah, me too. So we were talking about number 12, line 259. Ruth Hall asked a procedural question, what stage are we at? Proposed correction, Attorney Hall asked a procedural question regarding what stage the board was at in considering Mr. Nash's application.
I thought we just voted on that.
Now we voted on 11.
We did just
We
vote on it.
did vote on it, and then we had some objections. We had
And I had
objections
an
from
objection, and John objected. We did just vote on it.
No one
So,
voted.
did the
Did
vote
the vote.
pass or fail?
Right, so I think there were 2 votes for, or you vote one, Joshua, you voted?
I voted in favor.
I voted in favor, 1, 2 against, so it passes. Missing from summary, number 13. Proposed correction, there was uncertainty among the board on the answer to Attorney Hall's question. Several members commented that they were not sure about the stage of the application. Joshua recalled Alfred Nash's requesting extensions. Megan pulled relevant documents from Mr. Nash's application, including written notice of the board's decision to request room submission with 5 conditions to the application. Megan read the letter aloud. The secretary confirmed this notice in an oral review of minutes from the relevant meeting. Attorney Hall acknowledged their awareness of this notice and stated that they did not agree with the stipulated changes.
My recollection is that the secretary read it out loud, not Megan, but I could be wrong about that.
My recollection is that Megan read something and the secretary. So
It's probably a recording, Josh.
Well, it was read.
It was read. Do we have a motion to accept the change?
How about instead of saying Megan read the letter aloud, saying the letter was read aloud?
Why?
Because I can't remember, because I thought there was some dissension about who exactly read it.
Greg said he recalled me reading something.
Oh, pardon me. Well, something, I don't. I don't think who, if we're unsure about who read it isn't that important. It's important for the record that it was read. So, you know, that the public and the board had notice of the thing.
So-
Should notice of it.
So can you propose how that, this would
Yes,
change?
I would just take out I would say the letter was read aloud. So rather than make a letter aloud.
Given this, that this pertains to something I specifically said and did in the meeting, I would like my name associated with it.
I don't care.
So we need a motion.
I move to approve.
Excuse me,
Can I do it on my own?
I think so.
I move to approve.
You can move.
I move to approve
Do we have a
the
second?
stated correction.
All right, you don't have a second? Maybe we should consider Josh's language. Joshua's language.
Josh, make a motion.
I move to adopt item 13 as written, except that we say the letter was read out loud without attributing it to me,
Can I ask why?
because I don't remember, and it sounds to me like other people don't.
For discussion.
No,
you made a
personal.
motion.
We got a second?
Seconded.
Second. Okay, now we can have discussion. There being no discussion.
We're considering a motion on. what's-
I think
does
in
not
number
remember.
13, missing from the summary, the only change being made is that the letter was read aloud rather than Megan read the letter aloud.
No, I think it's important. I think it's relevant because I am new to the board and no one on the board had an answer to this question, but I did.
Well, none of that was said in the meeting. We have a motion and a second on the floor.
Call the
That's your discussion, your comment about it. Are there other comments about it? Call the vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those abstain? I'm going to abstain. Abstain. All those opposed?
Okay.
So we have two, one, two abstentions. Are we okay with that? Do you believe?
Did you vote, Greg?
Yes.
What- that's your vote.
3, 4.
I'm trying to make sure I remember correction. Four. I voted for the revised, so it's gonna be 3-1. Okay, so that passes, right? Line 266, 267, Megan asked how the board would do this. This is about how we were going to, just reviewing to see what 266, 267 is.
I don't remember the level of detail in number 14. I think Megan definitely said something about how it's gonna happen, but I don't, but just that would, the limitations are only when an applicant disagrees with the board's stipulated changes. I don't remember that level of detail.
Nor do I.
Well, the current minutes don't reflect what, uh, what Megan asked how the board would do this even means. It's completely out of context, and I'm providing context of what I asked, and I did ask, John, what is the process when an applicant disagrees with the board's changes?
I think the context is quite clear. It stated that there would be continuation of consideration for completeness on April 23rd. Megan asked how the board would do this.
No, I'm asking how the board handles when an applicant disagrees with conditions, not that we're gonna talk about this later.
That's different language you're proposing.
Yeah.
That's just something written here and then you just propose something different.
No, I'm proposing what the corrections is here.
No, you just said that you would acting chair for the board process when an applicant disagrees with the conditions, is what you just said.
Stipulated changes, conditions, yeah.
I think it might be helpful
Conditions, those
to
are
refer
really different things.
to the context for this line. This is Joshua Gordon moved to take no action on this letter that evening. Rich Markey seconded. All members voted in favor. It was stated that there would be a continuation for consideration for completeness on April 23rd. Megan asked how the board would do this. The way it is in context, it implies that she's asking how the board would continue it for consideration, which I wasn't there, but that doesn't really make sense. And her correction is specifying what it was she was actually asking, which, again, wasn't there, but does make sense.
And that is the language I use.
And you said stipulated changes, you didn't say conditions?
I said stipulated changes. But I would be fine with saying conditions, because the point of my question was, what is the process when there is a disagreement on what the board is asking of the applicant?
I move to adopt the amendments in item 14 with the change that the word stipulated changes be changed to conditions.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. New business, last section, adjournment happened prior to new business in the draft minutes. There was no, where is this? Item 15. Agenda item 11.
In reference to the map that Greg presented after adjournment, and that discussion wound up on the minutes as new business.
It's line 309, we're looking at the draft minutes.
That was all after adjournment?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
That's how apparently, and we agreed last time that we would strike it from the minute. So a motion to approve this number 15. A second. All those in favor? Aye. Excuse me? Who seconded it? I did. All right.
Do we at this point wait for an updated draft minutes from Lois, or do we approve the minutes with the corrections?
I think we should wait till there's an updated draft in 5 days.
Well, we'll have to wait until at least the next meeting to actually approve it.
Well, I mean, you just approved exact language changes. I think you can just vote on the minutes as finals with those changes. That's normally if the board shows up and said, I'd like to add a few words, we vote on it, then you approve the minutes as final and a new draft is made.
So then we are looking for a motion to approve the minutes of
Motion to approve the minutes as amended.
May seventh as amended.
April 9th.
April 9th, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong.
Move the minutes.
I'll second that. Discussion. All the vote, all those in favor? Aye. All right, next on the agenda is April 23rd, draft minute style. Okay, did you have? So have, people taken a look at so, let's see, after this meeting, and the controversy over minutes and Lois and I working on minutes together, I decided not to have anything to do with minutes until the issue is resolved. Lois did the minutes. I think she did a more abbreviated, generalized version of them. Lois is asked me if we could put this on the agenda to see how the board felt about this format for minutes.
What's different about the format?
Yeah,
Like, I reviewed the minutes of that meeting and sent as a note or two on it. I don't recall anything being notable about the style or format of.
Well, I was simply trying to compress and summarize more.
Oh, I remember you said that meeting now, yeah.
Right, basically, what I tried to do is remember what Bob Stevenson had said about 4 years ago. Summarize, who's there, what the issues are talked about, what the decisions are, what the votes are. But please don't do he said, she said. That's kind of the last discussion the board had. Secretary about how to do the minutes.
I thought that the minutes from the April 23rd meeting were readable and reasonable and more or less accurate.
they don't say draft on the top though.
Doesn't it?
I mean, at least, no, they don't, at least what I have.
I have not been thinking actually of this.
I generally think your minutes, I sit on a board where the minutes are, just an exact recording of the votes and nothing else. And to me, that's too abbreviated. And then I see on the other hand, the minutes of the ZBA, pardon me, and I think they're like way too blather and they don't even have paragraph changes and they're impossible to read, they're single space and way too long. And I think that's on the other side too much. And I think you sort of get it right down the middle somehow.
Baby bears for it.
Difference between, I don't know what type of board you're referring to, but the standard of transparency for this board is high. And I think that accurate specificity, while not being, overly long unnecessarily, is important. I think the public might want to know who said what and who, what was discussed specifically, rather than generalities. I don't know if any public has opinions on what they'd like to see in minutes, but because of the bar of accountability and transparency that we have, being a municipal board, I think is higher.
Well, this comes from my experience in Supreme Court litigation of town minutes, which happens not infrequently. It may make more difference that the specificity is greater when we're approving a specific plan or when a plan is contentious. And it can be slightly more abbreviated when we're talking about general policy. That, so maybe there's a little bit of wiggle in there.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think you accidentally sent my corrections, so I have more specificity to add to those minutes on the 23rd because it was a contentious hearing, and I don't think that one should be done in a more executive summary style, because it does meet that standard.
All right, any other opinions on minute style?
Was that meeting recorded? I don't recall.
It was, it's on YouTube.
The only thing I'll add is that the reason having more detail when you have an actual hearing like application is that the notice of decision that we issued, there's a requirement in statute that board's decision has to be in writing, but there's a court rule that basically the board's decision is that piece plus the written minutes. So the written minutes support the decision. So having more detail in the minutes makes the board's written order more defensible to the extent we actually went through and discussed, everything we're supposed to discuss.
That is specific to hearings.
Right, that's the minutes are a way of sort of expanding upon the written order. Instead of having some member go back and draft a highly detailed written order that's, here's all the findings the board had, here's what we discussed, you rely on the minutes to supplement it. But for everything else, I mean, to Lois's point, we just spent an awful lot of time over 2 different meetings talking about specific comments related to not a hearing where the minutes just let people know generally what happened. People can go find the recording if they want to get more detail, but it should be a faster process for us, but for here, detail is good.
Can I suggest that we set down the style question until we actually discuss corrections to this latest?
Review the next meeting.
Because I think we'll probably have more to say once we get to that point, and,
I agree.
it's 8 o'clock.
All right, let's move on. Megan Portnoy's cover letter of April 21 regarding drafting and handling the minutes of the planning board. I asked town council for guidance on the proper procedure for this discussion and specifically about recusal on this discussion. His advice is, because it is not a hearing and it is planning board business, there is no recusal requirement. It needs to be handled like any other planning board business.
I'm confused by what we're talking about. I've got Megan's April 21 memo. And I'm not sure what portion of it you're responding to.
Right now, I'm talking about the procedure recommended that we handle it as planning board business.
I didn't content of the letter.
Handle what?
The letter. Discuss the letter. Okay.
So are we discussing this letter?
Yep, that's what we're doing now. This letter says that Lois did something bad, that I did something bad, and that the board has participated in bad actions.
That is a lot of qualifying statements that are not included in the letter.
Can we say thinly veiled accusation?
No.
So the letter is formulated as the planning board in New Hampshire handbook describes as letter needs to be worded for removal of selected members. And it was sent to the select board, which is the board that would remove elected members. So if you're telling me this letter does not have any accusations of ethical violations or anything that Lois did not do wrong things in compiling the minutes, that I did not do wrong things in compiling minutes.
That the minutes were compiled not in accordance with 91A.
In what, please be specific about the way they were compiled doesn't comport with the statute.
Yes, that the substantial level of changes between original and what we were sent to approve was done outside of public hearing.
Has the town council said anything about this thing about the chair reviewing the draft?
Yes, the town council said that he has no problems with the secretary and the chair working together to compile the draft minutes. That also was discussed here when the town council was here before that meeting. And he told me that he said the same thing to the board here. I was not here because I was recused.
Putting aside any allegations of allegations, I feel like the discussion we've had today about the level of detail that should be in the minutes and when the level of detail might change or what Brendan said, or greater, you know, for disputed things and lesser for
hearings.
For hearings and lesser for policy. I get the sense that we have addressed the general sense of Megan's concerns, putting aside details of who said what when. Am I about right about that?
That
Do you feel like the discussion today about minutes and how minutes are done have addressed your concerns, whether or not you're, I don't mean whether you're in agreement that we have, has the board addressed your concerns?
about the
Minutes.
chair making substantial changes outside of public hearing and justifying it as coordination on compiling draft minutes? No, not until it's been determined either through some sort of standard of what can and cannot be changed outside of public eye, or that the chair is not involved in the compiling of those minutes.
So you disagree with the outcome, but do you agree that we've addressed it?
No.
No. So what?
I believe that, what was written in that letter, probably the first stop for that was the planning board. And that you should have brought those concerns here before you went to the select board. Honestly, it felt, very, I'm just gonna say, it felt very underhanded. It felt like you went behind the back of this board, that you were making, accusations that were very upsetting to people on this board. And that it represents a misunderstanding of the role of the select board in relationship to the planning board. The select board is not the boss of the planning board. This was planning board business. It was premature for you to take it to them. That's the last stop. That, it seemed like you were trying to set the stage to ask for removal of a planning board member. Okay, you might not have intended that. It was very upsetting. And I think it kind of, we have a lot of work to do. I think that everybody on this board wants to achieve the work. I think that everybody on this board believes that they have behaved ethically. You might disagree, but I think that properly, the question about whether or not there was something unethical about the way those minutes were handled should be presented to this board first. And if this board chooses to say to the chair, we disapprove of the way this is handled, we expect you not to do this again, that's fine. The board could also say, we think this is fine. But probably it should come here first and not to the select board. And that it is neither transparent nor collegial for you to have gone to the select board with that letter before presenting your concerns to the rest of this board.
Hear your opinion.
You stated that this was not a it seems very confusing to me. You say it's not an accusation of doing something wrong, but at the same time, you say that we have done something wrong by editing these minutes outside of the public eye. We asked council specifically about this. He says that he doesn't see a problem with it. He doesn't see, he'd like us to add specifically into the procedures if we intend to do that, which we can discuss about doing, we were discussing about doing. So how does the board feel about this? Do we need to take action on this letter in some way and say we don't believe that there are ethical violations that have happened, or what, what's the board's take? Go ahead, Logan.
So, I mean, I'm going to say right here, like, correct me if I'm missing something, it seems like, you know, we have some concerns. The board has addressed a number of those concerns by taking another look at our procedures and, you know, making or proposing or working on some adjustments to them, and we've consulted with council, who says that there's not an issue with the chair and the secretary working together to produce a draft. So from what I can see, we have addressed this to the extent that we can address it, and we've taken appropriate actions in reaction to it. So I guess my question is, Megan, what would you like to see happen next? What do you feel like hasn't been done?
Well, I didn't put this on the agenda and I didn't call, so I was actually quite confused about what we were going to be talking about. That was not made transparently clear to me why my letter was now again. I read my letter, we've had a discussion on it. So I guess that would be a question for the chair. It seems to me as though the chair and an alternate would like a public reprimand of my letter.
That's putting words in my mouth. That's not what I said.
This is an ad hominem allegation, those word integrity and proper handling. And those are ad hominem serious allegations. And
I did not say that a specific person was out of integrity. I said supported by my oath of office and commitment to maintain the integrity of the board. The integrity of the board includes not giving the public the perception that we are partial.
I agree. And
And this editing and the substance of the edits and the editing on a matter in which the chair is recused is giving the perception that we are partial.
it's a good point. Do you feel that the issue that you raised has been discussed sufficiently and that corrections are in the works or not?
Yeah, I don't know the result of the discussions will be in terms of those corrections, but we're making progress towards transparency, which I appreciate.
So it seems to me that we have responded to this letter then. All right.
Like I said, I didn't put this letter on the agenda and I didn't call this meeting, so I am not sure what we're discussing about it.
Well, you can't have it both ways. You know, you sent a letter to the Canterbury Planning Board and it got on the agenda.
Well, it was on the last one. That was my putting it on, and you're asking me what to do about the letter now. I didn't put it on the agenda for discussion, so that would be a question for the chair.
So whoever put this on the agenda this time, have we discussed it sufficiently, or can we move on?
We have another question here.
It's not a question, but I'd like to say something. And I've got no business telling the planning board what to do. But I would like to say a few words to the most recently elected member of the planning board. Megan, I was actually glad that you asked to meet with me to talk about your campaign for the planning board. And one of the reasons was that I think it's really important for this town to encourage a whole new generation, a whole younger generation to get involved in community affairs and town business. I was delighted by the number of people who ran for the planning board. I think that was a huge step forward for the town. But I have to say that, and I'm speaking now as a resident, because I've got I'm just a resident of the town. I was stunned by your April 21st letter. I read it again. And honestly, I was astonished by it. I was astonished by the tone of it. I was astonished by the lack of respect for your colleagues on the planning board and for people who have made a lot of contributions to this town. And I read it as an attack, as a very personal attack on several of your colleagues on the board. And I would just like to say that I hope you can find a way of learning to get along with the people on this board in a way that doesn't cause the kind of friction that we've seen in spades here tonight. I guess I don't have anything more to say than that, but I wish that you would think long and hard about the impact that you're having. There's a saying from somebody from the generation, I'm not sure whether it was Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg, but it goes something like this: move fast and break things. And this felt like that to me. So I just hope you'll think about that a little bit, because I would hate to see this board continue to have to deal with minutes in the way that you continue with them tonight. And I would hate to see the kind of implicit attacks, which to me were kind of a combination of arrogance and ignorance. And the ignorance is about how people get along in a small town, and the civility that's required, and the respect for colleagues that's required. So I apologize to the board for taking your time on this. Your letter was a very public letter, and I felt like I wanted to respond to it in public. So thank you for hearing me out.
All right, last comments here.
Yeah, going back to what you guys started this meeting with about respect and having people address the chair, what just happened should not have been acceptable. Because it was it was against someone else and not any particular other person on this board, it was allowed. That would not have been allowed if it were against someone else on this board. I can almost guarantee that. That is not acceptable, that personal attacks in front of everybody. That is not allowable.
Thank you.
At no time should that ever be allowable.
Rich?
So
I
not,
have-
not allowed to speak?
No, I called on Rich.
Oh.
That doesn't mean you can't speak.
Excuse me, I don't, do you feel cut off?
I did, but no, go ahead, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine.
Maybe we'll probably
No.
both get a chance.
We're fine.
I think an issue is probably how the minutes are formulated. I'm on another board. Lois has always been an exceptional secretary. And in past practice, the chair has, and we found out that it is okay for the chair with the secretary to have a second set of eyes on the minutes. And that's what happened. Megan's letter on the 21st is without, as Howie kind of alluded to, is an outright attack. And first off, I want right now, because it's on my mind, if I don't say it, then I'm gonna forget, is that you requested that I speak to you in a respectful voice, and I apologize if you felt, not me, if you felt that I was being disrespectful. I did not mean to talk disrespectful. Maybe it was a little bit of my passion bubbling up or whatever, but when we're going through the minutes and we're saying you're proposing changes, you're saying that something that I said that was in the minutes, and then you're making proposals and you're changing it, and I'm saying, no, wait, that's what I said. And then you kind of a little dismissive on it in terms of, well, yeah, that's the change. I'm going, no, A does not equal B. And what I said was A. And you're a little dismissive with B, and that's where I got a little irritated by it. And I apologize for being disrespectful, and I'm not trying to be that right now. But this letter was very tactful. And even though it wasn't, my name wasn't associated with it, it was, and for the public who may not have heard this, I'm not sure how far and wide this was disseminated. But she discovered inaccurately recorded items and edits that raised questions about transparency and compliance. These include changing of names, factual inaccuracies, omissions, inaccurate reflections of board discussions and member statements, changing the context to support a point of view, inclusion of information that was not discussed in the meeting. I was a law enforcement officer with Fish and Game for 12 years, and if these are kind of accusations, I would have got fired if I had done that. Flat out denied. So to put that in a public document and make those kind of accusations, even though they weren't directed at me, I felt they were because I'm part of the board. And I felt that it was an attack. And being a new member, I'm at a loss for words. Your turn.
Excuse me, Mr. Nash.
But if you want to again.
So I somewhat agree with what was said in there because we have been to meetings where we were present. None of our information was put into those minutes. My name wasn't even mentioned and I spoke. His name was not spelled correctly and he spoke and there wasn't anything about what he said. There were other people who spoke on our behalf and those things weren't mentioned, but it very much was one-sided. So I do understand where, and I've seen it in other minutes, and that's why I'm glad they're being recorded. Previously, they weren't, for just to be, you know, transparent. Now they are recorded, so it's a better depiction of what's
It's a
happened.
better, it's a better.
Whereas previously, we didn't have that. So I think moving forward, it'll probably be easier and better because we will have a clear tracking of what happened. Whereas previously we haven't. So all we had was he said, she said, this is what this document says. And, you know, we put our trust into this town, being new residents here. And when we saw the minutes and they were already approved, we didn't have a say in it anymore. That's disheartening.
As a board member,
And it's not against anybody particular. I used to do minutes. I know it's super hard, it's super frustrating, and we had a different process. So I'm not personally attacking anybody, but I can understand both sides and both parties. And
and as a board member, I think what happened was your initial hearing was back in September and it was an extended period of time. So there was some confusion as to where we were in the process and what had already been done and whether it had already been reviewed for completeness and then with the extensions and everything. It just,
well,
it confounded the whole mess.
the minutes after the fact, where it was that particular set, our initial meeting with you, those minutes were not necessarily accurate. But, you know, it's done. It is what it is. And
All right,
I-
more discussion on this?
Yeah, I appreciate hearing the board's perspective. My intention was not for it to feel like an attack. I am curious about that perception and then this discussion being put on without. It's seems a bit hypocritical if you perceive this as an attack. But
I'm sorry, Megan, I'm not following what you're saying.
you're not following what I'm saying. So I'm being accused of attacking the board. And that's the perception of some people on the board. And my perception is that this was put on the agenda as an attack on me in response. And it seems that if we don't want that we would model, if that's not how we do things. Also, while I appreciate the personal feelings and I can understand and see where they're coming from, The fact of the matter is, we're making great strides on transparency and accountability. And I think that we are well on our way to changing the public perception of the board because of the letter. And I was in a tricky position in finding out what I found out by happenstance. Given that this was about the chair of the board, to bring it to the chair of the board seemed troublesome.
But not transparent. You weren't being transparent with the board and your colleagues, definitely. So, we need to move on.
That my proposal was to move on. I think there's been a lot, and it seems like the path forward that there is and getting everyone on board is amending the bylaws and dealing with what the board really wants for minutes going forward, and that's something that is for another day.
Thank you, Brendan. So this is a volunteer board. None of us are land use professionals, but we have accomplished a lot as a board in the last 3 years. Members have diverse knowledge and experience that informs participation in discussion and deliberation. Members are aware that the board sometimes makes mistakes. Many members have taken and are currently taking training to be better board members. This is how democracy works in small towns in New Hampshire. The board has accomplished a lot by working effectively as a team. We have a lot of planning board business ahead, finishing the master plan, updating subdivision regulations, capital improvement plans. I hope we can continue to work as a team to accomplish these important goals. Next agenda item is conditional use permit form discussion. We have this has been passed out to us, Lois.
I've been reading through this and it's kind of complicated and what it gives rise to is whether it's comprehensive. And I don't know if it's comprehensive, number 3, for instance, type of CUP requested A, B, C, D, E, for all I know, there's an F. And if you go through the ordinances, comprehensively, did we miss one? I don't know, I'm just, for instance, and I'm wondering maybe if we might want to ask the Central Regional Planning Commission, who's been working with us on this, to help us a little bit on this. I have no expertise in developing forms. This looks fine, but I don't know if it's comprehensive,
Well, they gave that to us.
That was gonna be my next question, who developed this and how?
That was-
So this came from Central Regional Planning?
Yes, Matt Taylor brought it to the subcommittee. And we have an applicant who wishes to build a detached ADU. It's a lady who's been attending all the meetings and she's already submitted her details on a site plan application form. So what I was wondering if we could do is I could meet with her and have her transfer her details onto this form. We could see if it works and use it kind of as anything.
as long as the citizen doesn't mind a little bit.
No, she just wants to get going.
Yeah.
She's more than happy to do that.
That sounds like a great plan.
Yeah.
And then we can see how it works next Tuesday.
Nobody have objections to that? All right, thank you, Lois. Ken.
Yes.
Road waiver discussion in select board meetings.
So, the select board has been looking at advancing or modifying this if we find that there is interest from this board in us making changes. So we have agreed that we would like to hear your changes, if you have any, to go into our road waiver next time we address it.
Is there a form or whatever, like a form or some format where they're normally given that we might?
It's on the website, I believe.
It is on the website.
It's on the town website.
So
Go ahead.
I don't know whether this is the appropriate time to talk about the substance of this or not.
We need to review it, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's gonna need to-
Well, I will give you a short, comment, I guess, about, right now, the road waiver language and the zoning ordinance language do not agree. The zoning ordinance has well, actually, it's select board class 5 road standard. The town class 5 road standard is what the zoning ordinance says that the road has to be upgraded to. The road waiver has different language than the class 5 road standard. That makes sense?
Yes, I think the ordinance says class 5 and the road waiver stuff that you guys approved, that the select board approved, says something like a good quality road or something. I don't know exactly. Is that what you're talking about?
That's sort of what I'm talking about.
One should
So-
refer to the other.
I think they should.
It seems to me in two different places. We have.
I have the minutes from the select board meeting if you want it for the language that it's talking about. The app,
How long would it take you to read them to us?
30 seconds?
Wait.
Okay. So 5 to 6 years ago, the select board decided that class 5 standards are too onerous, so they changed the language in the road waiver application to quote, good and passable, end quote. It is subjective and judged by the road agent. And then I've got the section, it's section oh, I don't have the section. It's in the zoning ordinance. It specifically says class 5 or 6.
So do we need to change the zoning ordinance in order
No,
to make these
no.
agree?
Well, I don't think so. I agree with John that if you have a standard, you shouldn't have a standard one place that says you have to do it one way and a standard in someplace else that says you have to do it a different way. They should be the same, whatever. Maybe the ordinance needs to change, maybe the waiver needs to change. But that's my opinion, and we've had other discussions about it, is that they should be the same. Go ahead, John.
I believe one should refer to the other, so it's in only one place.
But the class 5 standard is so much more onerous than good and passable standard, and if it's in the zoning ordinance, Brendan, you may know, do we have to change the ordinance to make them agree?
I have no idea, not something I've looked at.
Okay.
Rich?
Can we table this for next time, because we're winging it here? Without seeing the zoning ordinance, without seeing the selectmen's, the form, the road waiver form, and without being able to compare the two, we're just going by recollection, and so we need to see what we need to change, and we need to compare them side by side.
So for the next meeting, we want to see the road waiver form. And the select board class 5 road standard. Because there's a difference between the class 5 road standard and a class 5 road, right? A class 5 road is a road in town that's designated a class 5 road. The class 5 road standard is something in the ordinance, referred to in the ordinance, required to, for subdivision and building permits.
Yeah, we can get all of that information in whatever we have for prep for the next meeting, because I have only the vaguest idea of what we're actually talking about right now.
Okay, thank you. We will move on.
Very good.
And maybe tagging on that maybe we can, the secretary can like have all the different inconsistent standards all in one.
It's just two things.
That sounds
One is
really-
like a road waiver, one is.
No, it's at least 3 things. You identified 2, and then there's the
the selectmen standard couldn't pass it.
I trust in Lois's paperwork power.
Could we have the board have that for the second meeting in May? Because the first one next week is already pretty full.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So more work session.
More work sessions. Uh, May 14th, master plan hearings and applications. What is that about?
Yes, there's two hearings.
Oh, yes, the hearings, yes, correct. So there's a master plan, so we're dealing with the chapter on housing and the chapter on land use. Rich has graciously agreed to present the chapter on land use. John has agreed to cover the first 6 pages, 5 pages of the housing. Logan, I think you responded yes to
Yeah, I just need
page
to
6.
actually get a hold of the current version of the document.
Right.
On the website.
That's.
I love when people say on the website, because like, well, that is accurate, it is also intrinsically unhelpful.
Yeah, it's
So this is
under,
not a dig at you at all,
No,
this
you
is
go
a
to
dig at the website.
You go to, no, and it is a conundrum, sorry, Greg, if I'm speaking out of turn. You gotta go to planning board and it's capital letters planning, master plan, sorry.
Alright, maybe
And
it's
then
more
you
fine
click
than
on
the
that,
last
no,
time.
wait, hang on, because you click on that and it sends you to the
New Hampshire Regional Planning.
New Hampshire Regional Planning,
website,
and then
which is where
you
the
gotta
information.
you gotta click on that link, and then it'll get you to the chapters.
So what I'm hearing here is that in fact it is not on the website.
Well,
Which
no.
would generally be taken to refer to the Canterbury.
I don't think
website.
it's on
It's in
Canterbury's.
fact on the Central Regional.
The correct 75 links.
I will figure it out, but
There's a
yeah,
link,
so
there's a link.
You gotta
Greg,
go to a
I
couple
think
links.
what I really need to know, because I mean, yes, I can go read through these sections and I'm sure that I can, intelligently summarize or whatever, but when we were saying present this in the meeting, what does that mean? What's the expectation? Is it
So Central Regional
summarize
Planning
and run discussion?
will come with some, easels and things with the objectives and goals and different parts of it. But then we will have the different chapters with printed copy for people to look at. And the part that we're talking about you doing is the
Fair use and
fair,
something.
yeah, what is the name of it? The fair share. Fair share, so
School enrollment and fair share analysis.
school enrollment and fair share. Question about that, did we ever get the new school numbers from Central Regional Planning? Does anybody know that? Because I think there was supposed to be some new school demographics. I'll call them and find out.
I also want to at least talk about the CIP a little bit. So,
Okay, I guess we're on to other business, so that's where you would be.
Are we, or do we need to talk about hearings and applications for the May 14th?
So after the master plan stuff, that's what I was concerned about, who was going to do those presentations. Then we also have, Lois, can you remind us what the hearings are?
It's the lady who wants to build the detached ADU. And the other one is the cemetery trustees, which should be fairly brief and easy. It's a lot line adjustment.
Right.
And the other thing we need to decide is, do we want to do refreshments like we did before? Or assume that there's not going to be enough people to make that work?
If we're scheduled in this space,
No, okay.
we're in town hall.
There's something else in competition that night, correct? There's,
Yes, there's a political group meeting.
So I think last time there was something, I don't know what it was at the elementary school, and very few people came and there were 6 pieces left over.
Right, so we don't do that.
What does everybody
Yeah,
else
school
think?
board.
No pieces.
No pieces?
Makes sense in the winter time.
Okay, that's decided. Anything else about May 14 that we need to cover?
Doing the pages 6 through whatever housing.
Megan is gonna do
No,
6, and
Logan.
Logan, I'm sorry. Apologies. Logan is doing the 6, and I'm doing the 7, 8, 9, 10.
I think you sent me 6 and 7, but
6 and 7, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
yeah, 6.6 and 6.7.
So without objection, we're on to other business. Joshua, you had CIP.
Yeah, the Stanford CIP, the
Capital Improvement Plan.
Plan. That is a document that's necessary to support our growth cap. And I'm assuming some other things as well. And what purports to be the CIP that we have in existence now is not a CIP, it's part of one. It's a spreadsheet of projected expenses over the next few years. But a CIP is required to be in a narrative as well. And I think it sort of, to me, it sounds like it, and what I read from other towns, it looks like a chapter, would otherwise be a chapter of a 10-year plan. It can't be a chapter of the 10-year plan because it's required to be done afterwards. But I think it's sort of in that mode where it has a narrative and a description of the improvements the capital improvements the town plans to do and why justifying them, or justifying not, I guess is probably more pertinent for us. But the current thing that purports to be a CIP really is not one. And I think it would not, or my concern is that if growth cap or other of the alternative growth ordinance, or the proper word for that is, wherever to be litigated, we have trouble supporting it because of the insufficiencies of what purports to be the CIP. And so I just want to say one more time that that thing needs to be done, however it gets done. And I think the statute says that either we do it or the selectmen appoint a committee, and I don't care which. I'd rather be some committee, so I don't have to do it. But
I think it was voted on in town meeting that the planning board was in charge of that, and that we can probably find, I think it was sometime in the 90s.
That's what Ken Folsom has told me.
Yeah, so we are, I believe, the planning board is in charge of it, so we need to put together.
So
a
can we
committee,
put it on the agenda to start working on it?
But we don't have to wait until.
Let me fill you in. We have talked with Central Regional Planning. They have a program where they do this for many towns. I think they sent you the Epsom,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, that's where I read it.
Right. And they also have some funding available to help pay for it. We have asked, so we can't do it until after the master plan is completed. They told me that they are preparing a contract for us so that we will be ready, so that we can be ready to move forward.
But the board,
Once the
but
master
the whole
plan.
board has to vote on that contract at a public hearing.
I don't know, that might be it's a town expenditure, so it might, well,
I just want to be careful because I feel like that there's been a lot of sort of bubbling about that we're doing too much stuff with the Central Regional New Hampshire Planning Commission. And I think we should address that very openly, so there's no accusations that we're yet again pushing money their way, because I feel like that there's some of that.
I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about
There's a
how
lot of
we're paying.
misunderstanding, so I think it should be a very, very open process, so that those who are concerned about it can come to a public session and understand what is happening, so that there's not issues later, accusations.
You signed that last contract, the grant, was that selectmen?
I think I signed it and administration signs it, is what my recollection is, but I'm not positive.
Greg, you said.
And that would probably be the same for the CIP.
Do we have that in our budget, or is that like the selectmen have to appropriate money, or
I
what?
think it was a grant.
No, it's costs
Well, we've already-
about $4,000 total, but, and at one point, they told me they had a third of it in grant money, another time they told me they had half of it in grant money, so I don't know what it will look like when it comes to us.
Similar statement, I am aware of all of the public perceptions about Central New Hampshire Planning Commission, and I reviewed the contract. There's nothing out of the ordinary, so I would just want to put that on the record that it
What
seems
are the public
pretty-
perceptions that I'm ignorant of that?
there's
Other than its
there's-
name, sounds like it comes from the Soviet Union.
There's just stuff on social media around about concerns, so I just wanted to put on the record that I reviewed the contract and it seems like a fairly standard, not overpriced, typical consulting contract for this nature. Yeah,
Well, our experience with Central Regional Planning is that they have been exceptional value from everyone I've talked to and every other town I've talked to. So thank you for that. So,
What I can tell, they're more than for any local.
yeah, I think it's,
Consider.
so it's like,
Yeah.
they're always doing extra things for us.
Not to mention the fact that a lot of it was
without
grant money, so we
charge.
didn't pay for it.
So, take the, excuse me,
oh, sorry, if you're wrapping that up, I have one more other business thing.
let me wrap up CIP. So, I will contact, regional planning, nudge them again to get the information to us so we can, review it and move forward on it.
You had asked me, a long time ago, we had to finish this. So we can revisit, and I think Megan was also invited, it was when we went through it,
Yes.
so that has already been in the works.
Actually, I learned something new about this today at New Municipal Association. They recommend that a member of the school committee be included because it's a big, we all know that the dollar amounts from the school board are big numbers. So that seems to me to make sense. The standard format is 2 people from the planning board, 1 from the select board, 1 from the budget committee, and now we're hearing 1 from the school group.
Well, what about the group of people that were involved in questioning whether we should be in, as part of the Belmont district? I don't think you did that. I don't know who else was on it. They might have something to say about that too.
Well, this is not expenditure of funds.
We should find out if members of the public are, you know, who are not on
Are
boards
they appropriate to include?
are meant to be included, or if it's supposed to, we should find out.
We'll find out more about it. Yes.
If you have to reach out to the school board, Michelle Lewis is the chair, so she would be the one you'd have to talk to, because I don't believe any other member can speak on behalf of the board, so she would be the one to expedite your process.
I'm just concerned that the thing gets done.
There was a delay, Josh, because of the master plan wasn't done yet, so it's a Candace that's easily.
The master plan had to be delayed because of the other thing.
Well, there was COVID in there. Yeah. So we are on other business. Megan, you said you have another issue.
Yeah, something that just came up in later discussion tonight that I would like to bring back to the bylaws and procedures and for you to talk to council about is some members receiving information pertaining to a hearing or a working session and others not. And I would like to see something along the lines of language saying all members receive the same information at relatively the same time. I understand you can't send separate emails, that's fine, but that we all receive the same information. And that some of the board doesn't come in with knowledge that other parts of the board do not have.
Right. There is ability for to ask for advice from one member of the board. prior to a meeting. But I think that's something we should get clarified in the procedures also.
I want to disclose that from time to time, Greg has asked me legal questions. But I'm not the town's lawyer,
So not for legal advice, but on this instance, it was, we got this letter. What are we supposed to do?
The stickiness of that comes into the, I imagine, because Hillary is your wife and I understand, I share everything with my husband, that she perhaps saw the letter prior
I
to.
actually did not, I had no knowledge of that letter.
I try to be careful.
He
about
does,
that.
he really, he
It's
shuts
not-
when he's on the phone, he shuts the door, like, I am not privy to these discussions. If Greg is talking to Joshua, I am not going to be involved in.
My wife and I have been actually on different sides of the same issue. And we make sure that the doors are closed and we don't talk about those things. But professionals.
Yes, one more question. please.
It's just a quick question. When you guys are talking about policies and procedures and how the board should get everything together or not, just keep in mind the alternates and how you want to address them, because I don't know if you want them in the loop or not in the loop, and same as packets and things. Because if they do happen to have to stand in for somebody, they should be informed as well. Just food for thought.
I agree with that 100%. That's why we made these changes, that the alternates can sit here and participate, exactly that, so that when a board member is absent, they can step in. And actually, I'll bring up other business for a second.
Sorry.
I think this experience actually with the NASH application revealed to us that we need to do better training of our of a vice chair or whoever's going to come in to take the place of a sick or absent or recused person. And there was because I was recused for this, normally if the chair was going to be away, then the chair could work with the vice chair to prep him or her for the meeting and say, but being recused, I declined to do that. It would not have been appropriate for me to do that. So John got that hold in the bag, not knowing some of the things that probably would have been better if he had experience with, or
Any experience, yes.
So one thing I had thought about, and I'd like to hear how the board reacts to this, is at maybe every meeting or maybe every other meeting that the vice chair take part of the meeting to become more familiar and comfortable doing it. One thing that jumped out as maybe an easy thing, although not so easy sometimes, it would be minutes. If the vice chair would do the minutes process.
Maybe not minutes.
Maybe not.
That's all we got talent for.
Can we hear can I hear opinions about that, thoughts about that?
It would be good. It would be preferable, yes.
Brendan, does that raise any concerns?
Yeah, I'm just a member, I have no problems personally.
Right, and well, that's town council. All right, I think we are entertaining a motion to adjourn.
Right. Just one more thing, for our transparency, I sent Lois an email from a resident in support of my push for transparency and accountability and support for my letter, so for dissemination to the board, and as those come in, I will send them to her.
Thank you. And let me remind everyone that all communications need to go through Lois. We cannot be sending emails back and forth at all.
And we all need to
Text-
set up our town emails,
text
which also.
messages.
Good
That's a
job,
royal
I'm so proud of you.
Because it's a different platform than Gmail, so it's like.
have .gov email?
I don't know whether if they're .gov or Gmail.
Sorry, do you,
You know, the new email.
Do they have county?
everybody on a land
Yeah.
use or
too.
financial boards has a .gov email. So including alternates, and actually this is for you. That's your password and that's a little packet of information about what the heck you're talking about. Yes.
Is this like cast in stone? We have to go, is the town already moved in that direction? And let me preface that by saying that Outlook is a pain in the backside. And it is not an easy platform to use. And I'm familiar with Gmail as other people are probably other platforms or whatever. But is it possible for us to get a town-sponsored, is that the right word? Email address from Gmail so that I can look at my Gmail and cross over and look at my planning board email. Otherwise,
It is possible you'd have to change the entire system, it is not a small undertaking.
I'm
because otherwise,
happy to answer this. So there's a lot of options. So depending on the email that you use, like on your phone,
Yeah.
you might be able to load the Outlook into the Gmail app, so you can still view it the way you're used to looking at it. I'm not sure if it works for Gmail, but I know a lot of apps do work with that, so that would be something that you and I could work with one-on-one.
I'll come to your library help session.
Or anytime at the Sim Lake House, because this is town business and it is a pain in the butt, I recognize that, and also I agree that Microsoft is not ideal, but that is a system we're working
I
with,
stay
so
away from it if I can. It's
so-
not easy.
I'm happy to help
Thank
you
Thank you, I'll
anytime.
come back here.
I was able to integrate with Thunderbird, which is
Yeah.
the.
Yeah,
client
that's-
I
If you use Gmail, you go to your Gmail, add account, you can add an Outlook.
Perfect. I thought Gmail had added that recently,
Yeah.
but I wasn't 100% sure.
Can we just all give Cal a hand?
Yes.
for
Yeah.
doing it? I know it's really, really hard and we very, very, very much
And you're
appreciate
pushing
it.
uphill against a lot. Lee was one.
Yeah, Joshua.
Yeah,
It's fine. It's
I know
not
that
a big
figures, I was having,
deal.
just.
So if you have any,
Cal,
if you have any
can we give
questions.
a hand to Lois, because I know that she's felt under the gun. Thank you, Lois.
Lois,
Admin appreciation time.
can you,
Always necessary.
I think we had more Cal right to know business that you were hoping to present to us at some point.
That was essentially just the email related stuff, so it's all in the packet. I didn't get a chance to give you my nice presentation last time. The ZBA got it for a little bit, but it's basically the background of why we were doing this, which is, right to know, there was a right to know workshop, we learned a lot, and we learned one of the things is that like how the process works and how onerous and fraught with liability it is if everybody's using their personal email accounts. And I mean, I do the same thing for my energy committee secretary work, so I need to fix that, and every single board is getting this fixed. It's like 80 different people that were trying to switch to different email clients, so you got the information packet. If you have any further questions about it, I can answer them now or later, or yes.
I don't have a question, but I've been working with Cal on AI transcription. And Cal is trialing it out with the select board. Is really easy to use application that provides a lot of data. So I can the board or provide my link to Greg to poke around with, or Lois to poke around with, and see if that's something.
I think it's a direction that the whole town, the whole state and the whole nation are gonna go eventually.
That's not,
But,
Hook ground. Did I mishear you? I didn't understand what
Doesn't
you
sound like
said.
anything.
my wife is a teacher at Concord High. She's a computer scientist, computer engineering. AI is a little bit too early to jump on that bandwagon yet.
Well, it depends on what you're doing.
Eric, do you have any
Exactly.
comment?
No.
If I could just say, I'm in the process of testing it. I have a background in computer science and software engineering and cybersecurity, and I am very hesitant about AI.
Okay.
So I'm giving this a very thorough test, because I wanna make sure that like, is it accurate enough? Because as we've seen, like, we need something that is very accurate, and is it time saving? Because if it can be accurate, but you have to like put in a lot of effort to fix problems that it has, then it's not time saving, and so, and then it might even come down to like a preference for the secretary. So if we're recording things anyway, do we need the transcript? Or, you know, there's a lot of different questions about it, so I just wanna reassure people that I'm looking thoroughly.
In a room, there's one person talking. It's great. But as soon as one person starts talking and there's a discussion over there, and there's a discussion over there. It throws a whole bunch of stuff out there. And
We have a public comment.
I'm just gonna say, Rich, I recommend reserving judgment so you see some results from it. It's come a long way and it's quite accurate.
she's pretty on top of things as a computer engineer. She's.
Rich,
she
Google my
stays with
name
the-
and put it up against credentials. I'm telling you, just wait for the data. It'll make sense if you actually look at it.
All right,
Right, so
I
that's,
would love to discuss how Skynet is gonna kill us all, but in the meantime, motion to adjourn.
but wait.
I already made that.
Before we adjourn,
Second, Rich wants a motion to adjourn.
this is the second, we've been here for 3 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And there was a time, and which I would like to return to, maybe pie in the sky, where we met from 7 and we had a commitment not to go past 9. It's a 2-hour meeting. This is the second over 3-hour meeting we've had in a couple of weeks. And I'd really like to make them into 2 hours.
I mean, frankly, this is a 6-hour meeting. This is really the rest of the last meeting.
Or whatever.
Yeah. All right, so we saw a motion. And do we have a second? John seconded, who first?
I believe we have multiple motions to adjourn. Rich claims that he made the first motion, which I guess makes me the second, and Josh the fourth, and John the fifth,
You good with that,
or
Lois?
third, and the fourth, whatever.
The whole board session. And first.
Let's make it Rich and Logan instead of thinking easier.
Can we vote on it?
All those in favor?
Very in favor.